Chapter 1367. Destruction. Kaya arrived beside Kai Lu in a single step and grabbed him by the arm. She asked in a hurry, "Uncle Lu, what about my father? How is my father?" Kai Lu shook off Kaya in a single stroke and frantically pushed her out. He said, "Kaya, don't worry about your father anymore. You can't save him. Leave, or it'll be too late. You're the only hope of our Kaler tribe. You have to survive, so you can take revenge for all the clansmen who have passed away." "No, I must save my father." Kaya's face was filled with worry and panic as well as some fear. She could already tell the importance of the matter from Kai Lu's words. She was extremely terrified of losing her father. "Your father's already been hit by a sneak attack from 5 relatively good friends. They've probably come for your cultivation method. Dumb girl, you can't save your father. Even if you hand over the cultivation method, they won't leave anyone alive. Stop hesitating and go," Kai Lu said in a panic. He looked back from time to time as an uneasiness filled his face. "Uncle Lu, you go first." "I'll go save my father," Kaya firmly replied. She gently let go of Kai Lu's hand before rushing away with lightning-like speed. No matter how Kai Lu begged her from behind, he was unable to stop her. Boom! Just as Kaya emerged from underground, a loud sound rang out. In the distance, the ground cracked and earth was thrown into the air. Terrifying pulses of energy radiated from the cracks, and in the center of the explosion was a 10-meter-wide hole. It plunged straight into the ground. The 5 patriarchs slowly emerged from the hole, and in their hands was Kai Tian, who had already passed away. "Father." Kaya recognized the flesh and blood in their hands with a single glance. It was her father. She was immediately devastated and let out a sorrowful cry. She charged over without any regard for her own life. "Kaya, you've come just at the right time. Hand over the cultivation method you've been practicing, or you'll end up the same as your father," the patriarch of the Dakar clan greedily demanded. He looked at Kaya as if she was a huge treasure. He had been blinded by desire. He appeared beside Kaya with a flash and extended a hand in an attempt to capture her. "You were the ones who killed my father," Kaya sorrowfully yelled at the sky. She was heartbroken. Tears poured down her cheek as she began to shine with blue light. A powerful presence radiated from her, and she firmly struck out with her hand. She began to fight the patriarch. With a heavy sound, the patriarch of the Dakar clan countered with a similar palm strike. Kaya's body jolted before being sent flying. It took her more than 10 steps to stabilize herself, and she left a deep imprint in the ground every step she made. The patriarch's body jolted violently as well. He swayed a few times while his face became filled with shock. He said, "Kaya, I never thought that you'd have already become a 13th star expert." The 13th star was equivalent to the 1st to 4th heavenly layers of a saint ruler on the Tian-Yuan continent. This was enough to be regarded as a peak-level force among small and medium-sized clans. It must be due to the cultivation method of the Octaterra Emperor. The cultivation method really is wondrous. The ruler of the Turtle clan has been able to become an emperor in such a short amount of time after practicing it. Kaya's strength had skyrocketed as well after practicing it. The eyes of the TYT clan patriarch lit up. He was extremely emotional, as if he had already seen the moment when he would become an emperor. "We have to get our hands on the cultivation method," the patriarch of the Herman clan added. He seemed like an extremely young man. He was handsome and only seemed to be in his 20s at most, but he was also very greedy. The patriarch of the Dakar clan struck out again. This time, he did not hold back. A 3-meter-long spear appeared in his hands. It radiated with powerful pulses of energy. He stabbed it toward Kaya with lightning-like speed. He had even used his powers as a saint ruler to freeze the space around Kaya, so he could finish her off sooner. The energy around Kaya swelled and continued to radiate a bright blue light. She stared at the 5 people in pure hatred as she spread her arms wide. Countless specks of white light gathered from the surroundings, condensing into 8 spears. Every single spear was 8 meters long. Although they were blurry, a mysterious energy circulated within them. "Rise of the Octaterra, single cut." Kaya cried out. The 8 spears immediately let out a dazzling light and smashed through the frozen space in the surroundings. They then shot toward the patriarch of the Dakar clan in a straight line. Boom, boom, boom. The patriarch had already reached the 14th star and was at the 6th heavenly layer. He was just far more powerful. He used his single spear to receive the 8 spears from Kaya, and with 8 booms, earth was kicked into the air as the powerful ripples of energy expanded in all directions. The patriarch of the Dakar clan destroyed the 8 spears. Kaya had only just become a saint ruler, but the 8 spears she had condensed were very powerful. The patriarch uncontrollably retreated several dozen meters after handling the spears. He became disheveled while his clothes had been reduced to a mess. He had not been injured, but he was in a rather horrible condition. He did not become angered at all, and his greed instead became even heavier. He excitedly said, "This must be a secret technique invented by the Octaterra Emperor. It's so powerful that even when you use it, it's enough to force me back. This is equivalent to a Tian-level saint technique. It can be used at such a speed. This secret technique is even better than a Tian-level saint technique," the patriarch of the Tingwei clan excitedly added. He was rather eager to obtain the cultivation method. The Tyt tribe patriarch seemed to have reached the limit of his patience. "Quit dragging it out. Finish her off quick. Let's attack together." The 5 people struck out at the same time and used their full strength. They were all rather eager, so they went as far as to lower themselves to deal with Kaya, who had only recently become a saint ruler. It was almost impossible for Kaya to deal with just one of them, so she was even more helpless when the 5 of them attacked together. She condensed 8 spears once again to force back one of them, but she could do nothing about the attacks from the other 4. A spear pierced Kaya's shoulder, a trident produced a long gash across her chest, and the palms of the other 2 landed on her chest at the same time. Spurt! Kaya vomited a mouthful of blood as she was sent flying back. She became extremely pale. If it were not for the fact that they wanted the cultivation technique and did not want to kill her before they got it, the wave of attacks would have been enough to wipe out her soul. Run, Kaya! Remember, you must take revenge for the tribe in the future. You must wipe out the Tyt tribe, Herman tribe, Golden Sword tribe, Dakar clan, and Tingwei clan, Kai Lu gloomily shouted as he charged over from afar. He carried a 14th star Quaking Thunder in his hand as he charged toward the 5 patriarchs. "Be careful, there's a Quaking Thunder in his hands," called out the patriarch of the Herman clan. He immediately froze space to trap Kai Lu. However, Kai Lu was already close enough to them and the Quaking Thunder had already been set off. With a great boom, Kai Lu was devoured by the vast energy released from the Quaking Thunder. The 5 patriarchs all retreated to avoid the ripples of energy from the Quaking Thunder. "Uncle Lu!" Kaya produced a heart-wrenching sob. She felt utter sorrow. She constantly vomited blood as tears ran down her cheeks. The pulse of energy from the Quaking Thunder caused the barrier around the Kaler tribe to tremble and shake. Kaya glanced in the direction Kai Lu had vanished while reminiscing before spreading her arms once more. She endured the pain and her shaking body with gritted teeth. She condensed another 8 spears that shot toward the barrier. Boom! A huge hole ripped open in the barrier with a great boom. Kaya grabbed her father's corpse as quickly as she could before rushing toward the barrier. She did not look back at all. "Chase her down. We can't let her escape," the 5 patriarchs panicked as they all pursued her as quickly as they could. The battle in the Kaler tribe only stopped when they left. Only the people of the 5 clans remained scattered across the land. The Kaler tribe had been destroyed. Blood flowed like rivers while corpses lay everywhere. Chapter 1368. Revival of the Sea Goddess, 1. Kaya ran as fast as she could with her father's corpse. Tears constantly poured down her cheeks as blood dripped from the corner of her lips. Her eyes were filled with hatred and sorrow. The 5 patriarchs closely pursued her from behind. Every single one of them moved as fast as they could, and they even used secret techniques to increase their speed. They needed to capture Kaya. Not only was capturing her directly connected to whether they would obtain the cultivation method of the Octaterra Emperor, but it was also connected to their future fates as well. "We can't let her escape no matter what. It's said that she has some connections with the Emperor of the Turtle Clan. This may not have been confirmed, but we need to make sure. Yeah. If Kaya finds the Emperor of the Turtle Clan, we'll be dead no matter where we flee." The 5 patriarchs spoke with heavy tones. They were all stern. They had underestimated Kaya's strength, never having imagined that she would be powerful enough to smash through the barrier, leading to all this. Although Kaya was nowhere near as powerful as the 5 of them, she was no slower than them, and even faster in some cases. 8 spears had appeared behind her. They were blurry, but every single one of them gave off a mysterious presence as a mysterious energy flowed inside them. The 8 spears formed a 3-meter-long fan behind Kai Ya. A mysterious force radiated from the spears, causing them to fuse together. They seemed like a pair of wings from afar. The wings formed from the 8 spears slowly flapped, allowing Kai Ya to move extremely quick. Without the use of any other secret techniques, she had reached speeds that even 7th heavenly layer saint rulers could not attain despite only having just broken through. The 5 people became more and more worried seeing how Kai Ya grew further and further away from them. The TYT tribe patriarch coldly said, "We can't catch up to her anymore. I'll use a secret technique to mark her so it's easier for us to track her down." The patriarch immediately began to use a secret technique. A drop of blood flew from the tip of his tongue, vanishing into Kai Ya at a lightning-quick speed. This was his innate secret technique. Only his clansmen could practice it. Once someone had been hit by the secret technique, they could be sensed from a very far distance. It was very difficult to erase their presence. Over 100 million people had gathered around the desolate mountain range where the sea goddess was being resurrected. They all stood 10,000 kilometers away. No one was bold enough to try to sneak in anymore. The news about the sea goddess revival had spread across the entire sea realm during that time, attracting countless people to come witness the spectacle. Many people were emotional, extremely eager for the moment when the sea goddess would return. In ancient times, the sea goddess had devoted herself wholeheartedly to her people and committed great services for them. She had even cast down a barrier to protect the sea realm. She was the most revered person in the entire region. The times were different now and many years had passed since the ancient years, which was why the sea goddess no longer held as much prestige as before. Some experts had even become ill-intended, but there were still people who devoted themselves to the sea goddess. Not everyone had changed. 3 months later, the water-attributed energy from the 99 spiritual springs vanished while the formation stopped absorbing energy of the world as well. After such a long period of intense consumption, the energy in the sea realm plummeted. There was less than 60% of what there had been originally, and it would take a very long time to recover to its original level. The revival of the sea goddess just took up far too much energy. Yadrium sat on a mountain in the mountain range as she devoted herself to guarding and protecting the sea goddess. She had never let down her guard throughout the entire process, paying attention to the surroundings at all times to prevent any other people from coming to cause trouble after the 2 hall masters had. Jian Chen sat on the Ziying sword, which levitated at an altitude of 1,000 meters and continued to let out a violet light. He devoted himself to comprehending the sword, studying the basic sword techniques that he had obtained from the azulate sword spirits. However, he did not forget about guarding the sea goddess during that time. He kept a sliver of his soul on God to observe the surrounding radius of 10,000 kilometers. That way, he was able to pay more attention to the sword techniques. Suddenly, Jian Chen's face twitched and he immediately stopped studying the sword techniques. He opened his eyes and began to stare at the center of the huge formation without blinking at all. Yadrium sensed something as well soon after he did. She stood up as her clothes fluttered despite the absence of wind. She silently flew over from a distance. She was both nervous and excited. It remained pitch black at the center of the formation, as if it hid another space or world altogether. No one could see what was going on inside. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a series of booms rang out. The formation that Yadrium had cast down actually exploded, producing thunderous sounds and causing the mountains there to shake and crack. Large portions collapsed as dust was thrown into the air. The entire region became engulfed by a thick layer of sand and dust. A powerful presence suddenly appeared and rapidly grew stronger. In just a few short seconds, her presence had reached a terrifying level. It engulfed the entire sea realm, as if a sleeping primordial beast had begun to awaken. Is this Her Majesty? Has Her Majesty been revived successfully? What a powerful presence. This presence actually makes my soul tremble. This is definitely from someone who has surpassed emperors. Is it really Her Majesty? The sea goddess has revived. After 1,000,000 years of slumber, the sea goddess of the 4 ancient champions has finally returned. The surrounding crowd of people buzzed with activity. Countless people loudly cried out. There was joy and excitement as well as a few people still filled with disbelief. They found it difficult to believe that the sea goddess was really still alive. As the sea goddess presence rapidly soared, she slowly began to display her prestige just like a waking god. Very soon, The tremendous presence surged out of the sea realm and condensed under the blue sky outside. It gave off a terrifying pressure. No one knew just how much more tremendous the pressure was compared to Saint Emperor's, but as soon as it radiated out, it was sensed by all the experts in the world. The 4 races gathered in Mercenary City all gazed in the direction of the sea realm in shock. The Path Lord of Carnal Desires and the 3 Class 9 magical beasts were solemn. They could sense the pressure even more intensely as Saint Emperors. They understood very well just how powerful the pressure was. Even with their strength, they shivered deep inside before the pressure. It's the goddess of the sea race. It must be her, mumbled the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. He was extremely excited. It was of extreme significance that they had one extra Origin Realm expert. However, the Path Lord, Kaiser, and Lanky Rose all became very ugly. Their eyes flickered with uncertainty. The sea goddess of the past had appeared, and someone who had surpassed Saint Emperors had appeared once again. The first since the ancient times. It would cause their status to greatly fall without any doubt. They were no longer part of the strongest of the world anymore. Chapter 1369. Revival of the Sea Goddess, 2. Her Majesty has been revived. This is just fantastic. The Sea Realm can be completely united now. There's no need for us to remain in a balance between 3 large organizations. The Saint Kings of the Sea Goddess Hall all excitedly exclaimed. The successful revival of the Sea Goddess was extraordinarily significant to the Sea Realm. In ancient times, the Sea Realm was under the Sea Goddess Hall's supreme control. There was only a single Sea Goddess Hall for the entire Sea Realm back then. The Heaven Spirit Hall or Serpent God Hall didn't exist like they did now. The experts of the 100 races were extremely happy for the revival of the Sea Goddess as well. In ancient times, only the Sea race had not fallen out with them, so they possessed no prejudice toward the Sea race at all. The Sea Goddess, who had just been revived, slowly hovered into the sky. She bathed in a layer of extremely dense blue light. Although her appearance was obscured, she gave off a holy presence that could not be tarnished. The Sea Goddess presence had been erased already, but Jian Chen and Yadrium still sensed a powerful pressure. The 2 Hall Masters, who had had their strength sealed up by Yadrium, looked up with difficulty from a nearby mountain. They stared at the Sea Goddess in a daze as despair filled their eyes. Congratulations on your revival, Your Majesty. Jian Chen clasped his hands at the Sea Goddess as he stood on the Ziying sword. He felt joy from the bottom of his heart for her. Yadrium knelt in the air. She was extremely emotional as she said with a trembling voice, "The Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall greets Your Majesty. Jian Chen, if it weren't for your assistance, I would have never been able to be revived. I cannot express my gratitude with words. If there is anything I can assist you with in the future, I will definitely give it my all," said the Sea Goddess. Her voice carried a sliver of joy and excitement. She had waited far too long for this moment. "I have a great debt of gratitude for Your Majesty. You've helped me far, far too much in the past, so how can I forget your kindness? This was my duty. I am not someone who forgets kindness that has been shown," Jian Chen replied nonchalantly. He was extremely easygoing. "Yadrium, it's been difficult for you during these years while preparing for my resurrection," the Sea Goddess said to Yadrium. Her voice was gentle. Yadrium's eyes fogged up slightly. She replied courteously, "Your Majesty is half a master to me. The only reason I am standing here today is all because of Your Majesty. I am willing to work until my dying breath for Your Majesty." The Sea Goddess gently sighed and changed the topic of the conversation. She said, "The Tian Yuan continent is facing a great threat. This is a disaster directly connected to the lives of countless people. We cannot stand neutral in this. Yadrium, once the great calamity arrives, lead the experts of the sea race to fend them off." "Yes, Your Majesty. I will definitely do everyone I can," Yadrium firmly responded. "Release the 2 of them. Every single emperor is extremely important to us. We can no longer afford to turn on ourselves and weaken ourselves at this time," followed the Sea Goddess. The eyes of the 2 Hall Masters immediately lit up. They recovered some light to their despair-filled faces. They were both filled with hope. "But Your Majesty, the 2 Hall Master wanted to stop your revival just then. If it weren't for Jian Chen, they probably would have succeeded already. Do you really want to let them go like this?" Yadrium said, "They have attempted to harm me and have committed unforgivable crimes, but the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints takes priority. We can deal with their punishments after we eliminate that threat, the sea goddess leisurely replied. She had always remained in the sea realm, but she knew exactly what was happening on the Tianyuan continent. I've just been revived, so my strength is nowhere near my peak. I need to immediately enter seclusion and recover as soon as possible so that I can deal with the threat of the foreign world. Jian Chen, this divine hall forged from abyssal crystal has been with me for countless years. It's the most valuable item on me, and I don't need it anymore, so I'll gift it to you out of gratitude for your help. You might not be able to use the divine hall, but it'll be extremely significant to the flame mercenaries because its toughness is incomparable to other divine halls. With a wave of her hand, the divine hall in the air immediately shrunk to the size of a fist and arrived before Jian Chen. It glowed with a blinding blue light. Jian Chen originally wanted to turn the offer down, but after considering the flame mercenaries, he had no choice but to take it. The sea goddess was right. The divine hall would be far too significant to the flame mercenaries. It could be one of their greatest treasures that could be passed down. The sea goddess left after handing over some matters. She found a place to enter seclusion so that she could recover her peak condition as soon as possible. Jian Chen had no more need to stay any longer now that the sea goddess revival had been completed. He rode the Qing Sua sword and left the place as a streak of light. Jian Chen could not help but think of the 4 divine general that had once hunted him down from the Serpent God Hall. He had once visited the Serpent God Hall with ill intent and fought the 4 divine generals all by himself, but he had unfortunately been stopped by the hall elders, allowing the 4 divine generals to emerge with their lives. He had never completed his revenge. I originally planned on taking your lives once I was strong enough, but now that the Tianyuan continent is facing a great threat, I'll deal with our enmity after the disaster, mumbled Jian Chen. The Turtle Clan was utterly different from its former self. Although it did not possess several experts at great perfection of Saint King guarding the clan, it was even more glorious than the past. They had given birth to an emperor. Just the single existence of their ruler allowed the clan to stand on equal ground with the 3 halls. They had taken the entire sea realm by shock and no one dared to provoke them. There were endless amounts of visitors from various clans daily. The clansmen felt like they were living in a dream right now. They had never been so happy or proud before. They had fought until they bled against several large clans in the past and faced destruction, yet today, basically all the important figures from the surrounding clans had gifted them large numbers of crystal coins. They had not imagined a day like this in the past. However, all of the clansmen knew that the reason why today existed was all because of their ruler. This was why the ruler of the Turtle Clan had become the most respected and admired leader among all the clansmen. He received the love of everyone. The discussion hall of the Turtle Clan had been redecorated and was now extremely well adorned. It was majestic and grand. Jian Chen sat on the throne in the hall while the elders of the clan courteously stood on both sides of them. I have gathered you all here today to announce 2 things. The first thing is that I am about to leave the sea realm, Jian Chen nonchalantly informed them. The elders all changed in expression when they heard what he had said. They all began to panic and urged him to stay because the clan could not go without a ruler. Jian Chen quietened everyone below and said, "My departure will happen sooner or later, but don't worry. Even if I go, the Turtle Clan will remain as one of the most powerful clans in the sea realm. The second thing I want to announce is that I will increase all of your strength before I leave. You will become the pillars of support for the Turtle Clan in the future." Chapter 1370. Glory of the Turtle Clan, 1. The elders of the Turtle Clan all stopped talking. They clearly were all very heavy-hearted. Even after hearing that the ruler would increase their strength and allow it to skyrocket, no one was able to lighten up. This was because the current glory of the clan and the reason why they possessed such a great status in the sea realm was because of the ruler himself. The clansmen had not contributed much at all. The ruler had already become the spiritual leader of the clan. His presence possessed extremely great significance to the clan. No one could go without the ruler. Although their ruler had left the clan from time to time, his absence had only been temporary. However, it was different this time. Jian Chen did not give an explanation, but the elders could already sense that his departure would be the real thing. He might not return ever again. "Ruler, don't abandon us. The clan cannot go without you. If the ruler isn't present, the clan will have lost its soul even if we're powerful. We'll just be reduced to the living dead." An elder knelt down as tears streaked his face as he begged the ruler. "Don't abandon our clan, ruler. Ruler, the clan needs you." The other elders all knelt down and bitterly pleaded with him. They all wanted Jian Chen to stay. Jian Chen sighed inside when he saw this. He fell silent for a while before saying, "If the turtle clan wants to become truly powerful, you need to be able to go without the ruler. A turtle clan that can maintain its glory even without their ruler is a true, peak-level clan. Only then can you go through thick and thin without waning. Elders, please come to me into the secret room." Jian Chen led the sorrowful elders into the largest secret room available before removing various heavenly resources from his space ring to increase their strength. The elders knew that the ruler had already made up his mind and would not change it no matter what. They all gloomily sat down in the room in dejection. Jian Chen glanced at the depressed elders and said nothing. He pulled out some heaven-connecting flowers he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm. The faint fragrance of the flowers permeated the entire room. The fragrance possessed the power of gathering concentration and could refine the energy within people and suppress their inner demons, allowing them to cultivate without being affected. Even in the immortals' world, the flowers were extremely precious. And the flowers he had brought out had grown in the Xianhuang microcosm, so they were even more extraordinary. Their effects were even stronger than ordinary ones. The elders immediately gathered their attention when they caught a whiff of the fragrance. Their eyes shone with interest. They were brimming with vigor once again. They were clear-headed once more. Their sorrow from the departure of their ruler had instantly vanished. Jian Chen secretly praised the effects of the flowers. They really were powerful when he sensed the reaction of the elders. The power of the flowers had not disappointed him. Jian Chen pulled out a large gourd from his space ring and poured out some blood. He split it into over a dozen droplets, which then floated before each elder. Each droplet was thumb-sized and pulsed with powerful energy. "This is what I obtained from the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall. It's the blood of an emperor and should possess great benefits for you," said Jian Chen, before using his mind to guide the droplets of blood into the mouths of the elders. The energy hidden within the blood immediately began to radiate as soon as it reached their stomachs. A violent presence rampaged within the elders' bodies. The elders became too busy to talk. They immediately gathered their attention and closed their eyes to refine the droplet of blood. Although it was a saint emperor's blood, there was not a lot of it and it had been stored for a long time already. The violent nature present inside had mostly dissipated, no longer able to pose any threats to the elders. The elders refined the blood very quickly. Not only did they sense an obvious increase in their strength, but their bodies also became even more powerful as well. The great effect of the droplets of blood was not an increase in strength but an increase in toughness of the body. The elders all beamed with joy. The blood of an emperor was something that countless experts lusted over, but no emperor was willing to allow others to consume their blood, as it would take a toll on their vitality without a doubt at all. They all felt extremely proud seeing how they could actually enjoy something like this. They all looked at Jian Chen again and saw him boiling water, about to make tea. Before them was a small bowl, and each bowl was filled with a faint, green liquid. "This is divine water of the world." An elder recognized what it was and could not help but cry out. The divine water of the world was a rare treasure of the sea realm. With just a single gulp of it, it was enough to make a person with mediocre talent become a genius that would only appear once in 10,000 years. It possessed great effects on saint rulers as well. Not only could it increase their strength, but it could also refine their souls and set down a foundation when they break through to Saint King. The divine water of the world will allow you to reach the 15th star without any obstructions or worrying about personal talent. "Drink it," Jian Chen calmly ordered. He had collected several hundred liters of it from the depths of the divine realm, so he still had a lot of it in stock. The elders all excitedly drank the water before them before closing their eyes. They all seemed intoxicated. Not only would the refinement of the soul from the water fail to cause them any pain, but it would also make them feel like they were transcending. It was extremely comfortable. After a certain period of time, the special feelings brought on by the water slowly vanished. The elders opened their eyes and were all overjoyed. Not only had their souls strengthened after ingesting the water, but even their strength had made great improvements as well. They did not break through, but it was equivalent to several decades or even a century worth of cultivation. What left them ravished with joy was that after the refinement of the souls, breaking through to Saint King would become 100 times easier. All they needed to do was work hard and reaching Saint King would basically pose no problem. At this moment, the light fragrance of tea hit their noses. Jian Chen had poured the tea for them, and on the tables, there were several fist-sized peaches. These were first-grade violet cloud peaches. A single one of them could increase cultivation by 500 years, And these 500 years was calculated according to the immortals' world. It would have far greater effects than that on the elders because their talent was not particularly impressive. Under Jian Chen's orders, the elders first consumed the peaches before downing the entire cup of comprehension tea. The emperor's blood and divine water of the world from before was only for establishing a foundation for them. The violet cloud peach and comprehension tea would be the heavenly resources responsible for making their strength skyrocket. Chapter 1371. Glory of the Turtle Clan, 2. As soon as the violet cloud peach reached their stomachs, it immediately transformed into a vast amount of energy. The energy was pure and powerful and filled every corner of the elders' bodies. The elders of the Turtle Clan were all extremely shocked and stunned. They found the energy just far too vast and tremendous, having exceeded the limits that their bodies could withstand. What shocked them even more was that such a small peach contained this unbelievable amount of energy. The emperor's blood and divine water of the world were nothing compared to the peach. The elders began to arduously refine the energy with fear and unease. They were afraid of being blown apart by the energy. However, they all let out a breath of relief. The energy within a single peach was terrifying, but it was not as violent as they had imagined it to be. Instead, it was extremely gentle and did not negatively affect them at all. As they refined the peaches, the comprehension tea came into great use. It took them into a wondrous state of mind. Under this state, the mysteries of the world, which they would usually take forever to comprehend, were being presented before them in a clear way. In their absent-mindedness, they seemed to understand and comprehend something. Their comprehension of the mysteries of the world rapidly skyrocketed. Before Jian Chen had possessed his fated swords, he had used the tea to force his way into sword origin. That was more than enough to demonstrate how great the effects of the tea were on people's abilities to comprehend the laws of the world. The elders were using the tea to comprehend the mysteries of the world that was far less significant than the way of the sword, so their understanding improved very quickly. Jian Chen sat before the elders and carefully observed their states. He watched over them, to prevent them from encountering any accidents as they went through the process. This was the first time he had given someone the heavenly resources from the Xianhuang microcosm. He could test the true effects of the heavenly resources on the elders. The presence of the elders rapidly strengthened as powerful energy pulsed from them. Their strength continued to increase. Suddenly, a faint white mist drifted out of the bodies of the elders. It grew thicker and thicker before enveloping them entirely. Immediately, the energy of the world in the secret room became extremely dense before dispersing into the surroundings. Jian Chen frowned when he saw this. He could tell that the white mist from the elders was the vast energy from the peaches. They're actually unable to completely refine a first-grade violet cloud peach. They still wasted quite a lot of energy, Jian Chen thought while feeling some pain. The increase in strength brought on by the peach would decrease as a result. Ziying, Qingxua, is there any way to prevent the leakage of energy? Jian Chen turned to the sword spirits for help. Master, this is a common occurrence. Not everyone can absorb all the energy within a peach. Normally in the immortals world, a weaker person will always have a senior of theirs watching over them when they consume the peach so that the senior can use their supreme strength to stop the leakage of energy or use some special method to seal the energy within them. However, you still don't possess that ability with your current strength, Master, Qingxua told him. Jian Chen gave up after listening to their explanation. All he could do was helplessly watch as the energy constantly drifted out of the elders. He could not stop it. Jian Chen stayed there for close to a month before the elders finally refined all the energy they could. The moment they opened their eyes, a tremendous presence immediately radiated from them, rushing out like a flood. It blasted the room to pieces in a single moment, caused it to collapse. The entire clan was greatly affected by their auras. Jian Chen put away the flowers, and with a flash, he left the room and returned to ground level. He stood with his arms crossed. The secret room he had just been in began to collapse, quickly forming a deep ditch nearby. The elders all erased their presences and rushed out of the ground. All of them stood behind Jian Chen while feeling emotional. They were all overjoyed when they sensed their current strength. They dropped to their knees and cried out, "We thank the ruler for your gift." At this moment, quite a few clansmen had gathered in the surroundings. They had no idea what had just happened, but they immediately bowed when they saw Jian Chen there. They politely cried out, "We greet the ruler." Jian Chen dispersed the crowd with a wave of his hand. He glanced over all the elders and smiled in satisfaction. He said, Well done, you haven't disappointed me. Your strength has rapidly increased and you have all reached the 15th star, and 5 of you have even reached the 16th star. In the entire sea realm, there is no organization, aside from the 3 ancient halls, that possesses over a dozen Saint King. From today on, even without me, you will be able to support the clan. As he said that, Jian Chen glanced at the sky above him. The sea realm was enveloped by a huge barrier, which was why no rainbow clouds appeared when the elders all became Saint Kings. The elders' excitement gradually vanished. They said rather gloomily, "Ruler, we wish for you to visit the clan often in the future. All of us will be thinking of you." Jian Chen glanced around the bustling clan and said, "The Turtle Clan is a clan that stands at the very peak of the sea realm. I have finally completed the Grand Elder's wish. I may visit you from time to time, but I will be handing the clan to you from now on. Farewell." Jian Chen jumped on the Ziying sword and took off as a streak of light. We bid the ruler farewell. The elders behind remained on their knees. Every single one of them felt horrible. Their joy from becoming Saint Kings had already completely vanished. Jian Chen visited the Grand Elder's grave before riding his sword to the Sea Goddess Hall. Yadrium received him personally while several hall elders followed behind her. Now, all the hall elders looked at Jian Chen with gazes of respect and fear. The most eye-catching person among them was a woman in a blue dress. She was alluring and no less beautiful than Yadrium. Jian Chen greeted Yadrium before looking toward the woman. He clasped his hands at her and said, "I thank Elder Atlantis' assistance back when I was being hunted by the experts of the Heaven Spirit Hall and Serpent God Hall." The woman was Atlantis, the one known as the strongest below Emperor. She was a hall elder of the Sea Goddess Hall. Atlantis bowed to Jian Chen and said, "The Emperor must be joking. You probably only hid your strength intentionally back them. Even without my assistance, they wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. I was unneeded in that situation, so please forgive me for making a spectacle." "Jian Chen, please come in," said Yadrium as she invited Jian Chen into the hall. Yadrium and Jian Chen sat opposite of each other inside a well-decorated room. Atlantis personally served tea and fruit for them. It hasn't been peaceful over the past few days. Her Majesty's revival has thrown the sea realm into an uproar and the 2 other halls have wavered. Many people have broken away from them and joined our Sea Goddess Hall. If it were not for the fact that the 2 hall masters were still alive, the 2 halls probably would have dissolved already, said Yadrium. "This is a perfect opportunity for you to unite the sea realm," replied Jian Chen. Yadrium glanced at Jian Chen and shook her head. She gently sighed. "That's not what Her Majesty wanted me to do. She said that having the sea realm balanced between the 3 halls is not necessarily bad." Jian Chen said nothing. He had nothing to say about the internal affairs of the sea realm. Yadrium picked up a finger-sized piece of fruit and ate it. She said, "Jian Chen, have you come this time for your friend?" "Yes, that's exactly why I've come. Back in the territory of the Heaven Spirit Hall, Her Majesty told me, as she was leaving, that my friend has been sent to the Sea Goddess Hall for cultivation." "Hall Master, is my friend well?" Jian Chen inquired. "You have no need to worry. After your friend was brought here by Her Majesty, she has enjoyed the treatment of a valued guest. I have already sent people with large quantities of divine quality crystals to help with her cultivation. She is completely fine right now, and her strength is rapidly increasing. I'll take you to see her right now." Yadrium stood up and left as she spoke. She personally led the way for Jian Chen. In her opinion, the only polite thing to do his would be to personally lead him to his friend. The divine hall was extremely vast. Jian Chen went through twists and turns as he followed Yadrium before arriving in a forbidden zone. He stood in front of a large door to a secret room. Yadrium opened the door and a ray of dazzling blue light immediately flowed out. An extremely pretty woman, who seemed to be in her 20s, sat inside cultivating. Her long hair ran down her shoulders. Her face was almond-shaped and her lips were like cherries. Her long eyelashes gently trembled, making her seem extremely enchanting. This pretty woman was Huang Luan, who Jian Chen had not seen for a long time. However, the current Huang Luan had already undergone an overwhelming change in strength compared to before. She possessed the water spirit's body, so her talent was shocking. She cultivated at an extremely fast rate, especially after she had arrived in the sea realm. She practiced a cultivation method imparted on her by the sea goddess, and her rate of improvement could only be described as stunning. She had already reached the 7th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. Although she was nothing compared to Jian Chen, there was rarely anyone in the world who could reach the 7th heavenly layer in such a short time after just breaking through. Huang Luan seemed to sense the door open and was roused from her state of cultivation. The moment she opened her eyes, her gaze froze. Her eyelashes gently trembled as she stared at Jian Chen in a daze. Her face was filled with excitement and joy. "You two catch up. I'll be leaving first as I still have matters I need to attend to." Yadrium left and secretly dismissed the people in the surroundings, leaving Jian Chen and Huang Luan by themselves. Chapter 1372. Departure in the blink of an eye. The surroundings fell so silent that even a dropped needle would be heard clearly. Only Jian Chen and Huang Luan's long breaths were vaguely audible. Huang Luan's breathing gradually became heavier and the sound of her heart beating seemed audible as well. This was all due to her excitement. Suddenly, Huang Luan lunged at Jian Chen and wrapped her arms tightly around him. She buried her face deep in his chest as her body slightly trembled. Huang Luan possessed the water spirit's body, so she should have possessed a warm and gentle personality. However, her personality was the exact opposite. Deep in her was a natural sense of chivalry, and she was relatively straightforward, especially in certain aspects. She lacked the bashfulness present in young girls. Jian Chen gently embraced Huang Luan as he could feel her supple skin. He could not help but let his state of mind waver slightly. "Luaner, it's been tough for you these days. I left you here all by yourself to cultivate. You had to endure the boredom and loneliness silently." Jian Chen sniffed Huang Luan's fragrance as he blamed himself. He had no choice but to leave Huang Luan here after bringing her to the sea realm. Huang Luan covered Jian Chen's mouth with a hand as her eyes filled with tears. She affectionately looked at Jian Chen's handsome and masculine face and gently said, "Chen, I don't blame you. The only person that can be blamed is me for being useless, and I couldn't help you, forcing you to go through storms of blood all by yourself. I'm currently cultivating as hard as I can to increase my strength. Once I become a Saint King, I'll be able to help you." Jian Chen was greatly touched by her words. He embraced Huang Luan tighter and lowered his head to gently kiss her forehead. He tenderly said, "Luaner, you don't need to be like that. My hard days of life are over. I have the strength to hold myself up in the world now and protect those beside me." All the hidden thoughts they felt exploded at that very moment after being apart for so many days. In the silence and without any disturbances, Jian Chen and Huang Luan remained in each other's embrace while they softly spoke. They revealed their true feelings. The two of them talked about a lot of things. Jian Chen told her about everything that he had experienced over the past few years, right down to the smallest detail. He did not feel like he had the need to hide anything from Huang Luan. The only thing he kept secret from her were the azulate swords and the immortal's world. It would not be good for her to learn about these matters too soon. Huang Luan became overjoyed after the initial shock when she learned that Jian Chen could easily kill Saint Emperors now. At that moment, Huang Luan had never felt so at ease. She remained in her lover's embrace. Over the past few days, she had been working hard on cultivating. She used her longing as motivation. She had always thought about becoming powerful to help out Jian Chen. She knew that Jian Chen's strength had increased very quickly in recent years, but it had not been a peaceful time for him. He often walked on the edge and would always be on the front lines of life. He roamed the boundary between life and death, living each day with great difficulty. Now, Huang Luan became extremely excited after she learned that her lover had become a Saint Emperor. This was because she no longer needed to worry about Jian Chen's safety, which allowed her to be at ease. "Luaner, I've come today specifically to take you back to the Tian Yuan continent. You've been away for so long, so it's time for you to come back. And it's time for us to find Chongyang Qingyun and settle the matter of him planting an ancient secret technique in you," Jian Chen gently explained. As soon as he mentioned Chongyang Qingyun, a sliver of fierce anger flashed through his eyes. Huang Luan remained in his embrace obediently like a cat. She tenderly nodded and said nothing. Jian Chen took Huang Luan to see Yadrium afterward and thanked her for looking after Huang Luan all this time. He pulled out a first and second grade violet cloud peach from his space ring and said, "Hallmaster, these are some heavenly resources I obtained in the space that I went into to search for Her Majesty's revival materials. They possessed extremely wondrous effects. This peach of a deeper color is for you, and please hand the other one to Elder Atlantis for giving me assistance back then." Yadrium thanked Jian Chen before accepting the two peaches. She did not pay too much mind to them. Jian Chen could tell with a single glance that Yadrium treated the two peaches as nothing. He could not help but add, Hallmaster, do not underestimate these two peaches. Once I leave, it's best for the Hallmaster to ingest the peach as soon as possible. Its effects will definitely give you a pleasant surprise. Really? Yadrium examined the peach in her hands and glanced at Jian Chen doubtfully. She did not believe that the peach would surprise her at all. She was already a saint emperor. No matter how valuable the heavenly resource was, its effects would be insignificant on an expert like her. Jian Chen also left behind 2 second-grade comprehension tea leaves and some water from the springs of life. He told Yadrium how to prepare the tea before leaving with Huang Luan. Jian Chen stood on the Ziying sword with his arm around Huang Luan's waist above the sea goddess hall. He shot off into the distance as a streak of light, headed to the serpent god hall. The Ziying sword moved extremely quickly, so quickly that Jian Chen was unable to distinguish the rapidly receding landscape around him. He used the senses of his soul to find his way. Huang Luan felt like she had entered a tunnel in space-time as she stood on the sword. Everything was all blurry around her. Chin, this Ziying sword is so fast. I never thought that the 2 swords you forged could be used like this. Huang Luan emotionally sighed as she stared at the Ziying sword beneath her in surprise. This is only the base speed. As I grow stronger, the speed will increase. Jian Chen smiled complacently. Traveling had always been a pain to him due to the fact that he was unable to comprehend the mysteries of the world on the level of a saint king. The Ziying sword made up for this flaw. Soon, Jian Chen arrived in the territory of the Serpent God Hall and stopped before some ruins. This was the territory of the Kaler tribe, but it had been reduced to nothing. The entire place had fallen into ruins. Chapter 1373. Returning to Flame City, the Kaler tribe had been reduced to almost nothing from flames. The ground had been burned to a pitch black with a few black remains scattered throughout the surroundings. From the ruins and remains, the Kaler tribe had been devastated several days ago. The ruins were silent without any signs of life. The moaning of the wind blew some ashes off the ground. It was a dreary sight. The Ziying sword flickered with violet light. It was enveloped by a thick layer of violet sword qi, making only a violet figure visible. It slowly descended under Jian Chen's control, stopping 20 meters above the ground. Jian Chen gently held Huang Luan as he slowly glanced over the ruins. He remained silent throughout his observation. He could still clearly remember that the region had been extremely bustling when he had given Kai Ya the cultivation method of the Octoterra Emperor. However, the prosperous tribe was nowhere to be seen now. It had been reduced to dreary ruins. Sigh. Jian Chen exhaled deeply after quite a long time. When he had given the cultivation method to Kai Ya, it was to thank her for her help and to find the Octoterra Emperor a successor. Thus, Kai Ya would become the second Octoterra Emperor. Yet now, I wonder if Kai Ya is still alive, Jian Chen thought. He felt no sorrow. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Tragedies like the Kaler tribe happened often both in the Sea Realm and the Tianyuan continent. Chen, is your friend here? Huang Luan gazed around before looking at Jian Chen. Jian Chen said, this used to be a friend's home. I never expected this tribe to face destruction. I wonder if my friend is still alive or not. Afterward, Jian Chen expanded his soul as hard as he could and enveloped almost 300,000 kilometers. He searched as hard as he could, but he did not find Kai Ya in the end. Let's go. Jian Chen stopped searching and left with Huang Luan. He flew toward the Tianyuan continent. Jian Chen flew over the oceans around the Tianyuan continent with Huang Luan and arrived in the Fire Dragon Kingdom, one of the 8 great kingdoms. He made his way to the royal palace. The Fire Dragon Kingdom was no weaker than the Qinghuang Kingdom. They also possessed 4 saint rulers, the 4 imperial protectors of the kingdom. Jian Chen's sudden arrival took the royal palace by great shock. The king and the 4 imperial protectors received him personally. They behaved with extreme humility and fear even though they reigned at the top on any other day. They spoke politely and were afraid of breathing too loud. Jian Chen stated his intentions in a straightforward manner. He wanted to borrow the space gate to return to Flame City. He had forged the azulate swords now and could move very quickly by riding them, but it was several million kilometers or more from the sea to Flame City. Space gates would still be faster. The king and the imperial protectors did not show any disagreement at all toward Jian Chen's request. They even personally activated the space gate for him, sending him off courteously. As Jian Chen and Huang Luan disappeared into the space gate, the king and imperial protectors immediately let out a breath of relief. Jian Chen did not give off a presence at all, but they felt like they were being pushed down by a mountain when they were before him. It was a psychological pressure. Imperial protectors. Has Jian Chen really become a saint emperor? Why does he still need to borrow the space gate if he is one? The king wiped the sweat from his forehead as he asked the 4 imperial protectors. The imperial protectors fell into silent thought and did not respond right away. One of them only began to confidently speak after quite some time. I have an old friend who was cultivating in the volcanic regions of the west. I've obtained definite information that Jian Chen has really become a saint emperor. Coupled with his 2 swords that were nurtured by the world, even saint emperors are no longer his opponents. Jian Chen used a single strike to defeat 2 saint emperors from the beast god continent and scared the path lord of carnal desires away. Jian Chen right now is far more powerful than any regular saint emperor. I have no clue why he has to borrow the space gate, however. The king gasped. He became so frightened by the fact that Jian Chen had defeated 2 saint emperors with a single strike that his heart almost stopped beating. However, he then became extremely excited and elated when he thought about how he had just come in contact with such a great expert at such a close range. He immediately sent out an order, immediately released the news that the Saint Emperor Jian Chen has just visited our kingdom. The king immediately announced the news of his visit. Now that Jian Chen had basically become the strongest Saint Emperor of the Tian Yuan continent, a personal visit from him was a great honor of the kingdom. It could raise their status and fame. 20 kilometers away from Flame City, space violently distorted before ripping open, forming a colorful space gate. The space gate slowly vanished after Jian Chen and Huang Luan had stepped out. Everything quickly returned to how it had been before. Jian Chen hovered 10 meters in the air as he stared at the city in the distance. The walls were pitch black, making it seem like a huge beast was slumbering there. The walls gave off a feeling of domination. A golden barrier was expanded across the city, enveloping the entire place. The only way into the place were through the city gates. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed when he saw the golden barrier. His gaze became extremely sharp in a single moment, like 2 drawn swords. His eyes shone resplendently. This was because he actually felt shocked by the pulses of energy from the barrier. The energy was just far too powerful, having completely exceeded the energy of Saint Emperors. An Origin Realm expert? Who else has reached that level of cultivation other than Protector Xueqi of the Ice Goddess Hall and Xiao Ling? And they've even put such a powerful barrier around the city? Jian Chen was filled with doubt. He flew toward the city with Huang Luan. Bai Lian and Yu Yu were currently gathered around a table as they personally taught a chubby white boy how to write. He only seemed to be 3 or 4 years old. The boy was very cute. He wore golden clothes and had no hair. His large eyes were extremely bright as they flickered with naivety. However, diligence was spelled across his face. Xiaojin, tell me what this word is. Yu Yu asked the young boy with a smile as she held a piece of paper. Heaven, the boy responded with his cute voice. Then this. Bai Lian also asked the boy what was on the piece of paper. Earth, the boy replied correctly. Xiaojin is so smart. A perfect memory. Without long, Xiaojin will know everything, Bai Lian giggled. Her gaze toward the boy was filled with affection. At this moment, Bai Hai walked into the room in white robes. He pulled Xiaojin away and chuckled. Xiaojin, you'll have plenty of time to learn how to read in the future. Come with me first. I'll teach you a new ability. The barrier you created is extremely powerful, but there are still many flaws. The barrier of Mercenary City made its energy sink into the ground, making the ground as tough as steel. Come with Grandpa. I'll teach you a new way to use the energy. The boy did not resist at all as he was led away by Bai Hai. Only Yu Yu and Bai Lian voiced their displeasure. What do you know? There's plenty of time to learn how to read in the future. The utmost priority is to make Flame City as tough as steel as well as to get Xiaojin better acquainted with his abilities, said Bai Hai righteously. He ignored the disagreement of the 2 girls as he led Xiaojin away. But at this very moment, Xiaojin seemed to sense something. He looked in the direction of the city gates before turning into a flash of golden light. He vanished in a single moment. Chapter 1374. Reunion. Xiaojin, come back. Where are you going? Bai Hai yelled. He was frightened and pursued Xiaojin. He had already spent some time with Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin had always been extremely obedient during that period of time. The boy followed everything they told him to do, just like a good child. Bai Hai felt rather uneasy seeing how he acted out of the norm today. Bai Hai was convinced of Xiao Jin's strength after his initial doubt and after spending so much time together. Even though Xiao Jin's strength was beyond a Saint Emperor's strength and was extremely shocking and unbelievable, he had slowly begun to accept it after some time. Bai Hai's treatment of Xiao Jin immediately underwent a drastic change after understanding his strength. Xiao Jin possessed terrifying strength but still possessed the mind of a child. In fact, he knew nothing, just like a newly born infant. As a result, Bai Hai decided to raise him like his own grandson, passing on all his battle experience and everything he knew to him. In the end, he got Xiao Jin to understand the many uses of energy and even how to use the mysteries of the world. Bai Hai had taught him how to cast down the faint golden barrier around Flame City. Bai Hai had become overjoyed for quite some time since Flame City had suddenly gained an expert who had surpassed Saint Emperor. However, he felt rather afraid and worried as well. He did not know the origins of Xiao Jin, or whether he would suddenly leave the city at a certain point in time. Bai Hai became extremely worried by Xiao Jin's abnormal behavior. He was afraid that the boy would leave and never return. Xiao Jin! Xiao Jin! Yu and Bai Lian's cries rang out from behind. They also ran out of the hall quickly and worriedly looked for Xiao Jin. They immediately chased after him. Jian Chen held Huang Luan's hand as he strolled through the streets of Flame City. He was traveling by foot but in no way was he slow. He traversed close to 100 meters with every single step. He was using spatial force. Jian Chen would look at the golden barrier in the sky from time to time and would become rather stern. He constantly wondered just who possessed such terrifying strength and possessed some connection to Flame City. Is it Rue Jin and the others? Jian Chen wondered. Only Rue Jin possessed energy of that color among all the experts he knew. However, the energy Rue Jin used also possessed a pure and dense dragon aura. That aura was not present in the barrier. The streets of Flame City were bustling as people moved to and fro. Jian Chen and Huang Luan moved along the main street toward the city lord's estate. No one noticed them along the way. At this moment, a golden streak of light flew toward Jian Chen at an unbelievable speed before stopping in front of him. Jian Chen came to a halt as he stared at the person who had suddenly obstructed him with interest. Chaotic force surged within him, having made preparations for battle at any moment. The person in front of him was a chubby boy in golden clothes. He was hairless and less than a meter tall. He stared at Jian Chen with his naive eyes. They flickered with interest and some confusion. The boy felt extremely close with Jian Chen. It was much heavier than the feeling he felt from Bai Lian, Yu, and Bai Hai. It was as if he shared the same bloodline as him. The feeling also engulfed him in warmth, which was extremely pleasant. At that moment, the boy seemed to have found the most important thing in his life as he stood before Jian Chen. Without any contact or communication, he decided to treat Jian Chen as someone he could rely on. Jian Chen was unable to remain as calm as Xiao Jin while the boy stood before him. He was extremely stern and some disbelief had even appeared in his eyes. He was only able to see the boy with his eyes, unable to discover him with his soul. If he swept the region before him with the senses of his soul, he would find nothing. The Origin Realm. Jian Chen was surprised inside. He was unable to see through the boy's exact strength, but he knew that the boy would definitely be an expert of the Origin Realm. All his clothes are golden, the same as the barrier around Flame City. Was this barrier cast down by this boy? Jian Chen thought. He found it very unbelievable, but what he could not understand was where the boy had come from. Why had he appeared in Flame City? Huang Luan had discovered Xiao Jin as well. Ever since she had entered the city, her focus had been devoted to the surrounding landscape. She had not discovered where Xiao Jin had come from since she had been admiring the prosperity of the city along the way. She did not know how powerful Xiao Jin was either. She arrived before him with smiles, bent down and touched his chubby cheeks. She asked, "Little brother, what's your name? Where do you live? You can't run around wildly on the streets all by yourself." Jian Chen was frightened by what Huang Luan had done. The boy was an Origin Realm expert, so how could he be treated in such a manner? However, what took him by surprise was that the boy did not respond in a hostile manner. He only looked at Huang Luan with curiosity visible on his face and did not reject her. He allowed Huang Luan to touch his cheek. I'm Xiao Jin, the boy said with his immature voice. He seemed rather dumb. Jian Chen pulled Huang Luan back and stared at Xiao Jin with an odd gaze. Was he really an Origin Realm expert? Xiao Jin, don't run away. Come quick to Grandpa's side. A slightly worried voice rang out from the distance. Bai Hai shot over from the city lord's estate and tightly grabbed Xiao Jin's hand. He would not let go no matter what, afraid that the boy would suddenly run away. Great-grandfather! Jian Chen exclaimed in surprise. He became even more confused when he saw how closely Bai Hai and the boy interacted. Bai Hai had devoted all his attention to Xiao Jin, so he had not discovered Jian Chen before him. Bai Hai became stunned when Jian Chen called out, before raising his head to look at Jian Chen. He immediately became overjoyed, letting go of Xiao Jin's hand immediately. He tightly grabbed Jian Chen by the shoulders and laughed aloud. My good grandson, you've finally returned. Great-grandfather this? Jian Chen asked in doubt as he pointed at Xiao Jin. Bai Hai's mood became elated with Jian Chen's return. He chuckled aloud and said, Grandson, let's return to the city lord's estate. I'll explain everything in detail there. In the estate, Yu, Bai Lian, Bai Hai, Jian Chen, Huang Luan, and Du Gufeng gathered together to celebrate their return. The dining table was filled with various delicacies, but none of them were interested in eating. They all wanted to confirm if the various rumors floating around the continent about Jian Chen were true. Yes, it was me who heavily injured the 2 saint emperors from the beast god continent. My cultivation level may still not be there, but if we really do end up fighting, there's probably no saint emperors who can be my opponent. Jian Chen spoke the truth and hid nothing. Announcing his strength to his close friends and family would only bring benefits. It would also set their hearts at ease, no longer needing to worry about his safety all day long. They were all euphoric when they gained Jian Chen's confirmation. The rumors had appeared long ago, but they were still rumors and would not be true sometimes. They could only believe them once they received personal confirmation from Jian Chen. At this moment, Xiao Jin ran in from outside. He climbed onto a seat and began to wolf down the delicacies on the table all by himself, but he would always glance at Jian Chen from time to time with his large eyes. Jian Chen asked everyone about Xiao Jin's identity, but no one present could answer that question unfortunately. It was a complete mystery to them. At this moment, Yu said after some hesitation, Jian Chen, my master said that he's a spirit nurtured by the world. He was born from the tungsten alloy mine. What? Xiao Jin's a spirit born from the tungsten alloy mine? Bai Hai was in disbelief. Sister Yu, why didn't you tell us sooner since you already knew? Oh, was it all caused by Xiao Jin when the mine was struck by the lightning? Bai Lian said with some displeasure. Chapter 1375, Everyone Becomes a Saint King, 1. Yu smiled apologetically, Sister Bai Lian, grandfather, please forgive me for keeping this a secret, because this matter is just far too shocking. Even when I personally learned this from my master, I felt like it was all just a tale. It was difficult for me to accept, which was why I didn't tell you all as soon as I learned of Xiao Jin's identity. Jian Chen could not help but think of the metallic spirit origin energy, hidden in the depths of the tungsten alloy mine with Yu's explanation. The sword spirits had discovered its existence long ago, but it had not matured back then, so he left it hidden deep within the tough tungsten alloy. Even the Grand Elder of Mercenary City back then, Tianjian, was unable to penetrate that deep, so he could only leave it be in the end. He had never thought that the metallic spirit would have fully matured before he returned to the city, and would have been able to endure the heavenly tribulations to take on a human form. It was extremely powerful. Jian Chen's gaze toward Xiao Jin became rather odd after learning Xiao Jin's identity. He could obviously tell that Xiao Jin's naivety was like a newly born infant. He was a harmless-looking boy but an Origin Realm expert at the same time, which Jian Chen found rather difficult to accept. He had learned from the sword spirits just how impressive the metallic spirit was and its unlimited future potential. However, he was just taken by disbelief to think that it would be an Origin Realm expert as soon as it came into existence. After all, there were only 5 experts of the Origin Realm even in ancient times. Ignoring the one from the Ice Goddess Hall, there were the 4 champions of the humans, magical beasts, sea race, and 100 races. This was more than enough to see just how rare they were. Even right now, there were only 2 Origin Realm experts on the Tianyuan continent at most. However, what made Jian Chen even more confused was why Xiao Jin would appear in Flame City after assuming a human form and why he felt that Xiao Jin's gaze toward him was filled with reliance. He did not shrug off Bai Lian and the others either, which he could not understand no matter how he thought about it. The Tian Yuan continent is currently facing a disaster. The world of Forsaken Saints is about to invade our world. We're in desperate need of a powerful force in this crucial period of time. Xiao Jin's sudden appearance just holds far too great of a significance. However, he seems to be lacking knowledge in many areas. We need to teach him a lot over the next few days, especially techniques regarding battle, said Jian Chen. The topic of conversation soon shifted away from Xiao Jin. Brother Ming Dong is currently cultivating in a secret room we've specially prepared for him in Flame City. He's already become a saint ruler, and we don't know what level he's reached now. However, Brother Ming Dong's talent is much greater than grandfather's talent. His rate of cultivation has even made grandfather speechless. Jian Chen expanded his soul and swept the surroundings. Indeed, he found Ming Dong in seclusion 1,000 meters underground. He really did improve at an extremely great rate, having reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler already. Jian Chen then looked toward the silent Dugu Feng at the table. Dugu Feng was among his earliest group of followers. He had met him with Ming Dong when they had competed in the gathering of mercenaries in Mercenary City. Dugu Feng was not as powerful as Ming Dong back then in the competition, but the difference between the two had not been particularly great. Yet now, Ming Dong had already become an 8th heavenly layer saint ruler while Dugu Feng remained a heaven saint master. Dugu Feng's not banned. He's remained as the disciplinary elder of Flame City for a very long time, committing meritorious services for the Flame mercenaries. He's even pushed back his own cultivation. It would have been impossible for the mercenaries to be as stable as it is right now without Dugu Feng, Bai Hai said from one side. The gaze he used on Dugu Feng was filled with kindness. Yeah, I don't want Dugu Feng to busy himself because of the Flame mercenaries and end up not cultivating at all. I've been trying to convince Dugu Feng to return back to the clan over the past few days, but he will return again soon, Bai Lian added as well. Dugu Feng had indeed made drastic contributions to the expansion of the Flame mercenaries. My talent is nowhere near as great as Ming Dong's talent, so it's impossible for me to catch up to him no matter how I cultivate. Since that's the case, I did some things that were more meaningful, Dugu Feng nonchalantly replied. He seemed to never smile with his steadfast face. Dugu Feng, you don't need to worry about talent. I have my methods of completely altering your talent and allowing you to become a saint king in the shortest amount of time possible, even ensuring that you'll become a saint emperor in the future, Jian Chen solemnly said to Dugu Feng. He did not have many friends he truly trusted and Dugu Feng happened to be one of them. Afterward, Jian Chen asked the others about Little Fatty and the others. Little Fatty, Senior N, Yun Zhang, and Wang Yifeng have not returned since they set off to train themselves on the continent. We only receive some news from them from time to time, but it seems that they've been well over the past few years, said Bai Lian. Liener, command the Flame mercenaries to search the continent for them and get them to return to Flame City as soon as possible, ordered Jian Chen. The disaster was imminent. He needed to use the resources on hand to increase their strength. 3 days later, Bai Lian, Yu Yu, Dugu Feng, Bai Hai, Huang Wan, and Ming Dong were all brought to the mountain range where the tungsten alloy mine used to be by Jian Chen. However, the vast mountain range had become ordinary. It was no longer as famous as before. Ever since the metallic spirit had absorbed all the metallic essence, the tough tungsten alloy had all been reduced to simple rock. Jian Chen, why have you brought us here? Ming Dong asked in confusion as he looked around. He had just emerged from seclusion. This place is open enough. It's a good place. I plan on making you all break through here, said Jian Chen. Get us all to break through? Jian Chen, have you obtained some extremely impressive heavenly resources? Ming Dong's eyes lit up and his interest was immediately piqued. Jian Chen nodded slightly. Yes, I've indeed obtained some heavenly resources. They are enough to make your strength skyrocket. Ming Dong, you're already an 8th heavenly layer saint ruler and your talent is impressive. It's possible for you to break through to Saint King with this opportunity, or directly become a Saint Emperor. What? Ming Dong was greatly shocked. He stared at Jian Chen in disbelief. Even Yu Yu, Huan Luan, Bai Hai, and the others were the same. Jian Chen no longer wasted any time. He first used the blood of the Hall Master from the Serpent God Hall to strengthen their bodies before using the holy water of the Spirit Sea to alter their constitution and talent. In the end, he removed some heaven-connecting flowers, enough violent cloud peaches, and a few comprehension tea leaves from the artifact space to increase their strength. Jian Chen did not behave stingily at all. The immortal peaches could only be consumed once in 100 years, so in order to maximize their increases in strength, he could no longer bother with wasting anything. He brought out 5th-grade violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves and used the best spring water he had on hand to make tea. Chapter 1376. Everyone becomes a saint king. 2. Ming Dong, Bai Hai, and Huang Wan were all saint rulers and on the higher end of the spectrum of cultivation. As a result, they refined the blood and holy water faster than everyone else, rousing the soonest. Without long, Yu refined the blood and holy water since she had only recently reached Saint Ruler. Their bodies had strengthened greatly under the refinement of the Hall Master's blood, and even their talent and souls had undergone a metamorphosis from the holy water of the Spirit Sea. Jian Chen, what is this blood? It actually contains such powerful energy. With my current strength, just refining a fist-sized amount of it would give me enough trouble, Ming Dong said in surprise. He then looked at the heaven-connecting flowers in the surroundings and the recently made comprehension tea that gave off a thick fragrance. He felt deeply shocked when he saw the treasures Jian Chen was able to pull out. I really do wonder what dangerous place Jian Chen has gone to obtain so many impressive heavenly resources over the years I spent in seclusion, Ming Dong thought to himself. He did not recognize the flowers or the tea, but he could determine they were extraordinary just from their fragrance. This is the blood of a saint emperor. I heavily injured a saint emperor recently in the sea realm and managed to collect some of his blood during the process. The saint emperor's original form is a serpent dragon from the depths of the ocean. His blood is very useful to you, explained Jian Chen before delivering a 5th-grade violet cloud peach and a cup of tea to the 3 of them. He said, "This is a violet cloud peach. It can increase your cultivation by 2,500 years, while this comprehension tea can assist you while you comprehend the mysteries of the world. Consume them together." Ming Dong was shocked when he heard about the Saint Emperor's blood, but when he heard about the almost heaven-defying effects of the peach and tea, he immediately became stupefied. Even Bai Hai, Huang Wan, and Yu felt the same way. They had never even seen or heard of something so wondrous. A single peach could increase their cultivation by 2.5 millennia, while a cup of tea could increase their comprehension of the mysteries of the world. Ming Dong, Bai Hai, Huang Wan, and Yu drank the tea with the peach just as Jian Chen had told them to in a rather numb fashion. The peach transformed into tremendous surging energy that gushed through their bodies as soon as it reached their stomachs, causing them to devote all they had into refining the energy. Jian Chen looked at Bai Lian and Dugu Feng. Bai Lian was still an Earth Saint Master while Dugu Feng was a Heaven Saint Master. They took far longer than the 4 others. Even after reducing the amount of blood he had given them, they still found it extremely difficult to refine. The 2 of them were very stern and would appear in pain from time to time. Their bodies gently quivered as if they were enduring intense pain. Jian Chen observed the 2 of them carefully. He had already made preparations to send them into the artifact space, if the situation took a turn for the worse, in order to prevent any accidents happening to them as they refined the Saint Emperor's blood. Dugu Feng finally roused an hour later. He had benefited a ton after refining the blood of a Saint Emperor. Ignoring the fact that his body had toughened up, even his cultivation had risen to the 4th cycle from the 2nd. Jian Chen did not give Dugu Feng any time to rest. He immediately made him consume the peach and tea, so that his strength could increase one final time. 2 hours later, Bai Lian finally roused as well. Her face was rather pale and exhausted. She was the weakest among all of them, only an Earth Saint Master, so it was extremely difficult for her to refine the blood. However, the effects were evident. She had reached the peak of the 6th cycle from the 3rd. Fortunately, the violent factors in the blood had mostly been removed, or she would not have been able to refine the blood at all. Just a drop of it might have even been enough to kill her. The blood of a few powerful immortals could kill Saint Emperors, so the blood of Saint Emperors could also easily kill Earth Saint Masters. Soon after Bai Lian finished refining the blood, she consumed the peach and tea as well. She entered a higher stage of cultivation. Although the 5th-grade immortal peaches possessed a tremendous amount of energy that did not match up to its size, absorbing it all could not be achieved by any one person. It would depend on the person's strength and talent. Jian Chen practiced the chaotic body, so he had a tremendous demand for energy. He also refined energy at a rate far greater than ordinary people, which was why he was able to absorb an entire 5th grade immortal peach. However, that was not the case for the group of people here. Even Ming Dong and Yu Yu, who possessed extraordinary talent, could only absorb parts of the energy. At that moment, white mist formed from pure energy drifted out of them and dispersed into the surroundings. The mist was extremely thick, such that it shrouded them. From afar, they seemed to be wrapped in a large white cocoon. Jian Chen was helpless to deal with this situation. All he could do was watch because he was not powerful enough to seal in the tremendous energy right now. He had learned from the sword spirits that an immortal was needed to seal in the energy from the peaches. As the energy dispersed into the surroundings, the energy of the world in the mountain range quickly became very dense. It constantly increased. Jian Chen sat on a nearby mountain as he used his soul to watch over them as he comprehended the sword. He had not understood all the sword techniques he had learned from the sword spirits. Several days later, 3 tremendous presences suddenly appeared. Ming Dong, Huang Wan, and Bai Hai all broke through to Saint King, drawing in rainbow clouds, which covered a radius of several 100,000 kilometers. The rainbow colors from the clouds were bright and resplendent as 3 layers of them stacked on top of one another. They illuminated the world and dyed the entire region a shade of rainbow colors. Jian Chen stood up on the mountain and waved his hand. Suddenly, a gentle force surged over and enveloped Du Gufeng and Bai Lian. He took them elsewhere, preventing any disturbances caused by Ming Dong, Bai Hai, and Huang Wan's breakthroughs. The rainbow clouds in the sky had caused a very large commotion on the continent. The birth of Saint Kings was extremely significant to the various organizations across the continent. Particularly in an age that lacked Saint Emperors, Saint Kings were even more valuable than they were before. Another person's become a Saint King. Fantastic, we just happen to be in need of Saint Kings. All the Saint Kings in Mercenary City glanced in the direction of Flame City. No, there seems to be 3 layers of rainbow clouds stacked upon one another. Are there 3 people becoming Saint Kings at the same time? Song Qiong was the first one to discover the abnormality of the clouds. He was surprised. You're right. There really are 3 layers of clouds stacked together. We may not be able to see them from so far away, but I can clearly sense 3, said a Saint King at great perfection. Surprise filled his face since 3 people simultaneously becoming Saint Kings was very rare. It seems to be in the direction of Flame City. Have Saint Rulers of the Flame Mercenaries broken through? That may not be the case. There's some hermit and ancient clans in that direction as well. It might be them. Quite a few Saint Kings discussed the matter in Mercenary City. It was quite a significant matter for 3 Saint Kings to appear together on the Tian Yuan continent. No one was certain who they were. However, it was only a casual discussion. This matter was not enough to draw them over to see what was going on. Only the breakthrough of Saint Emperors would attract them. Ming Dong, Bai Hai, and Huang Wan used the Violet Cloud Peaches and Comprehension Tea to become Saint Kings. The presences from them were as vast as an ocean. They were enough to kick up large gales that swept through the surroundings, where even the clouds in the sky were affected. The rainbow clouds churned as a result. The 3 of them had not roused from their cultivation yet. The effects of the immortal peaches and tea were still present, allowing their strength to skyrocket, as if there was no end to it. Chapter 1377. Breakthroughs complete. At this moment, another tremendous presence erupted as well. 4 presences appeared at the same time, causing the energy in the surroundings to become chaotic. The wind in the surroundings became even more violent as well. Yu Yu had also broken through to Saint King, drawing in more rainbow clouds. There were now 4 layers of clouds in the sky. With the 4 layers combined, the clouds spanned across an unprecedented area. They almost enveloped the area 1,000,000 kilometers away. Even in Mercenary City, the distant horizon glowed with rainbow light. The Saint Kings who had gathered in Mercenary City all looked in the direction of Flame City. They were all astounded. It was already an overwhelming matter for 3 people to simultaneously become Saint Kings on the Tian Yuan continent. It was extremely rare even in the prosperous ancient times. There were 4 people becoming Saint Kings now, and they were all located in the same region. They had no choice but to feel astounded. Good. Fantastic. Another person's become a Saint King. Our continent's power has increased slightly again. The young really are going to be surpassing the old, a Saint King at great perfection praised. Has the breakthrough to Saint King become easier than before? Many people connected the 4 simultaneous breakthroughs to this question. Back in the mountain range near Flame City, Yu was clearly different from everyone else when she broke through. White, clear, and gentle light flickered on her body, as if she was a moon in the night. Endless amounts of white light gathered behind her and condensed into a huge round moon in the end. It was extremely bright and gave off a gentle glow. It illuminated the surroundings, adding a unique color to the rainbow world that the clouds created. Jian Chen stared at Yu from afar. He knew that Yu's cultivation method was extremely extraordinary, far more powerful than Saint-tier cultivation methods or cultivation methods of Saint Emperors. This was why a phenomenon like this had occurred as soon as she broke through to Saint King. Afterward, Dugu Feng and Bai Lian broke through as well, reaching Saint Ruler. The energy from the violet cloud peaches still remained, continuing to carry their strength through the cultivation levels like a hot knife through butter. In the sky, 2 layers of 5-colored rainbow clouds silently formed, enveloping an area of 100 kilometers. However, since 4 layers of 7-colored rainbow clouds already occupied the sky, the 2 layers were ignored. Many people even missed them altogether. A few figures appeared one after another in the surroundings. Not only did the event attract the saint rulers of a few hermit and ancient clans, even quite a few heaven saint masters had come. This is unbelievable. The 4 who have broken through to Saint King are actually all in the depths of this mountain range. I never thought that there would be 4 powerful experts hidden here, a saint ruler from a hermit clan softly said. He found this news difficult to believe. Shu, don't make too much of a disturbance. We don't want to disturb the 4 seniors who are breaking through. Let's go see what the 4 seniors are like. The saint rulers and heaven saint masters began to carefully advance toward the depths of the mountain range. They wanted to see the 4 saint kings personally. In the end, the group of them stopped 10 kilometers away. They could see the saint kings from very far away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's actually 6 people cultivating there, but they're all enshrouded by a white mist. We can't see what they look like, and there's someone else nearby guarding them. That person sure is weird. He actually carries 2 swords on his back. That's not mist. It's formed from extremely pure energy of the world. My God, have I seen wrong? Such pure energy of the world is actually drifting from their bodies. No wonder I felt that the energy in this mountain range was countless times richer than elsewhere. That doesn't seem to be energy of the world. It's countless times denser and purer than the energy of the world we know. Who are they? The saint rulers and heaven saint masters all discussed among themselves and all felt shocked. All of them spoke very gently or used communication techniques to communicate. They were afraid of disturbing the people there. Everyone, I am the captain of the Flame Mercenaries, Jian Chen. My friends are cultivating here, so please do not approach them and disturb them. Otherwise, I can only cause you offense, Jian Chen said to all of them through a communication technique. What? The captain of the Flame Mercenaries? I've actually just heard from the captain of the Flame Mercenaries. It's that person with 2 swords on his back. I never thought he'd actually be the great Saint Emperor Jian Chen. Those people are actually being guarded personally by Saint Emperor Jian Chen. Everyone back off, we can't get too close. I've actually witnessed Saint Emperor Jian Chen with my own bare eyes. Am I dreaming? Jian Chen stated his own identity and immediately surprised the people in the surroundings. If they did not become excited for some reason, they became filled with dread. Their gazes toward Jian Chen were either filled with fear or abnormal excitement. Jian Chen's name had resonated throughout the continent long ago. Not only was this because he was the 4th Saint Emperor on the continent, but he was also an extremely powerful one as well, having defeated 2 Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent in a single stroke. Jian Chen had become a legend across the continent now. He was as well known as Mo Tianyun from the ancient times, or possibly even more famous, because he had cultivated for less than a century. Even in ancient times, there had never been anyone who had become a Saint Emperor without even reaching 100 years in age. The people who had been drawn over by the activity became extremely obedient after learning Jian Chen's identity. They all retreated to several dozen kilometers away by themselves. They watched on from afar and even watched their own breathing. They were afraid of disturbing the people in cultivation by breathing too loudly. As time went on, more and more people appeared. No saint kings had been drawn over, but there were quite a few saint rulers and heaven saint master. However, None of the people who had come later on dared to get any closer after being seriously warned by the people who had gathered earlier. They had taken up a role of protecting the people in cultivation by themselves. There were people of the flame mercenaries among them. They were filled with pride when they heard that their own captain was there. The group of people's breakthrough took around a dozen of days to complete. Their strength had undergone an overwhelming change with the increase this time, with Ming Dong in particular. He was the strongest, having reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint King, followed by Huang Wan and Yu Yu at the 7th heavenly layer. Bai Hai on the other hand fell behind. As the person who had reached Saint Rulers many years ago, he was now at the 6th heavenly layer of Saint King. Du Gufeng had become a Saint King along with the 4 of them. He reached the 4th heavenly layer from a Heaven Sant Master in the beginning. Only Bai Lian was the weakest, but even with that being the case, she had reached the peak of the 9th heavenly layer as a Saint Ruler. She was quite close to becoming a Saint King. They were all filled with joy when they roused from cultivation, Ming Dong in particular. He had reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint King in a single stroke from Saint Ruler, making him the strongest among all of them. This comprehension tea is just far too wondrous. It can help me comprehend the mysteries of the world so easily. It makes it hundreds of times easier than comprehending the mysteries beneath Mercenary City, Ming Dong excitedly exclaimed. Jian Chen also faintly smiled. He was happy for their drastic increase in strength. A 5th grade violet cloud peach was enough for a mortal to become an immortal in 100 days and surpass Saint Emperor. This was why the immortal peach was a priceless heavenly resource even in the immortals' world. It was extremely valuable. However, they were unable to absorb all the energy from the immortal peaches due to their restrictions in strength and talent. A lot of it was wasted, which was why a single peach was only able to make them become Saint Kings. A few people gathered in the surroundings finally became bold enough to approach them. They congratulated them sincerely, but when they discovered that the people who had broken through were part of the upper echelon of the flame mercenaries, their mouths hung agape once again. They were stunned by Lian in particular. She had only been an Earth Saint Master before, and within just a dozen days, she had become a 9th heavenly layer Saint Ruler. She was even more powerful than them, so the people who had come over with congratulations all became flabbergasted. They struggled to accept the reality of the matter. At that moment, they even thought that their cultivation of thousands of years had been a complete waste. Chapter 1378. Attack 1. After returning to Flame City, the upper echelons break through to Saint Ruler and Saint King spread through the city like wildfire. It threw the people in the city into great shock. The people of the flame mercenaries affected in particular. They all put down their matters at hand and gathered in groups as they celebrated. They cheered for the increase in the mercenaries' strength. The flame mercenaries had once been a powerful organization that even the 10 protector clans feared, but it was all due to their captain, Jian Chen, and the 3 magical beasts. The flame mercenaries only possessed a few saint rulers aside from them. It was different now. Huang Wan, Yu Yu, Bai Hai, Ming Dong, and Du Gufeng had all become Saint Kings, and even Bai Lian had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. They had no need to fear the protector clans anymore with such a powerful combination. Perhaps they could not match up to the protector clans in terms of heritage, but they could match up in strength at the very least. The strength of the mercenaries made all its members extremely excited and emotional. All the people entered seclusion again right after their strength had increased. They had grown just far too quickly within the past few days, so they needed to practice their new abilities, or they would not be able to display their power in battle at all. A few days later, a series of cries rang out from a large bird in the distant sky. The bird was 5 meters wide. It had collided with the golden barrier outside, producing a miserable cry as it fell out of the sky. On the back of the bird sat 4 people. Due to the momentum, they all struck the golden barrier as well. They became dizzy and fell off the bird. However, 2 of them were Heaven Saint Masters and could fly. They controlled themselves very quickly before moving through the air, saving one of their Earth Saint Master companions each. In the end, the 4 of them landed safely on the ground despite the shock. They rubbed their heads as they stared at the barrier around Flame City in doubt. A huge bird beside them flapped its wings as it stood up with difficulty. Its head had become bloodied and its neck had been broken. Where did this barrier come from? Why can't we pass through it? Have we been kicked out of the group after leaving back then? A young man in his 20s stared at the barrier like a victim as he complained in displeasure. The flame mercenaries are becoming more and more established. With this powerful barrier, people are unable to enter the city by air. The only way in is through the gates, said a middle-aged man. His face was resolute while his eyes were fixated on the city walls. At this moment, a group of guards on similar magical beast mounts rushed out of the city with lightning-like speed. They charged toward the four of them and surrounded them. Who are you? Don't you know that it's forbidden to fly in Flame City? State your identities and intentions, the middle-aged leader coldly commanded. He was a Heaven Saint Master and wore armor forged from tungsten alloy. He seemed to possess quite an impressive demeanor. Now that the flame mercenaries had powered up, even the guards had an air of complacency around them because of the glory. Who's in charge of the flame mercenaries right now? Is it Jian Chen or Sister Bai Lian? Why don't you hurry up and report to them that the four of us have returned? The one, who seemed the youngest among them, slowly replied, like an old man. He did not treat the Heaven Saint Master's words with any importance at all. The Heaven Saint Master's face sank and his eyes narrowed in a single moment. Their captain was now a legendary Saint Emperor on the continent. His status was so great that even great Saint Kings needed to treat him courteously when meeting him. It was an unforgivable crime for the group of insignificant Earth Saint Masters and Heaven Saint Masters to directly refer to their captain by his name. Just when the leader of the guards wanted to send out the order to capture the four of them, his gaze suddenly froze. His eyes became fixated on the young man who had called Jian Chen by his name, before his face abruptly took on a new expression. He then quickly glanced over the three others and became surprised. He asked, "Are you Xiao Tianyu, Wang Yifeng, Yun Zhang, and Senior N, the four people Jian Chen is looking for? I never thought that there would still be people who remember us after being gone for so long." "Yes, I am Xiao Tianyu." "Oh right, who cast down the barrier around Mercenary City. Why didn't they even tell us?" "It hurt a lot," the youngest-looking person present grumbled. He was Little Fatty, Houston's grandson. After these years of roaming the continent, he had become a handsome young man. His face was filled with the results of traveling through wind and rain. It was resolute and rather cold. The Heaven Saint Master hurriedly dismounted and politely bowed to the four of them. He said, "I am Zhua Fan. I didn't know you were the four sirs before, so please forgive me if I have offended you. I don't know what's up with this barrier either. All I know is that it suddenly appeared recently." "Whatever. Let's go into the city and find Jian Chen. We have been hearing rumors that he has become a Saint Emperor recently and defeated 2 Class 9 magical beasts from the Beast God continent. I know these rumors are probably exaggerated, but it still should be something seeing how the entire continent knows about them," Xiao Tianyu nonchalantly said. Afterward, he called out to Wang Yifeng, Yun Zhang, and Senior N to enter the city. "You finally returning. Looking for you really wasn't easy." At this moment, clear laughter rang out. Jian Chen stood at the entrance of the city in white robes as he looked at the four of them. "Jian Chen!" Xiao Tianyu cried out. He immediately rushed over and hugged Jian Chen. The two of them laughed from the bottom of their hearts. They had not seen each other for many years, so they were extraordinarily excited to see one another again. "Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yun Zhang, Senior N, let's enter the city first. I've already gotten people to prepare a banquet to receive you after so much traveling." Jian Chen laughed as he directed them to the city lord's estate. Behind, the guard, who was a Heaven Saint Master, stared at the four of them in envy. They were only Heaven Saint Masters or Earth Saint Masters, yet they had been personally received by their great captain. Probably even Saint Kings could not have enjoyed such treatment. At the banquet, Jian Chen drank and talked with the four of them. They slowly told him about the things they had experienced over the years, and Jian Chen had also confirmed the rumors they had heard from various parts of the continent. They all became stunned when they learned that Jian Chen now possessed the strength to overwhelm Saint Emperors. The morning of the next day, Jian Chen brought the four of them back to the mountains where the tungsten alloy mine used to be. He also let out the several dozen elites from the artifact space, planning on increasing all their strength in a single stroke. At this moment, a terrifying pulse of energy appeared from far away. It caused the earth to violently shake. Chapter 1379. Attack 2. The mountain range violently rumbled as great thick cracks began to cover the entire region. Whole mountains began to collapse as rocks rolled down, creating heavy booms. The area that was shaking was extremely vast. The entire continent was affected. Even if someone was several million kilometers away, they could still sense the trembling ground. Jian Chen arrived on the highest mountain in a flash. He stood straight as he gazed into the distance. He looked in the direction of Mercenary City. Although it was impossible to see anything since Mercenary City was just too far away, he could still clearly sense just how powerful the pulse of energy was. Jian Chen became stern. However, his eyes began to shine as well. Not only did they become extremely sharp like drawn swords, they were filled with powerful battle intent as well. Jian Chen, what's happened? The others arrived beside Jian Chen and stared off into the horizon. The energy pulse from the distance was so powerful that even Xiao Tianyu and Wang Yifeng could sense it, even though they were just Heaven Saint Masters. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and said gruffly, "Little fatty, gather all the people here. We're returning to Flame City immediately." "All right," Xiao Tianyu firmly responded. He did not ask why as he immediately gathered the several dozen people. Jian Chen could not help but dismiss the thought of increasing their strength today. He returned to Flame City with Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yun Zhang, Senior N, and the several dozen elites from the artifact space. He immediately gave the command of closing off the city, stopping all entries and exits. Afterward, he left them behind and left the city through the space gate there with Xiao Jin. Yu Yu, Bai Lian, Huang Luan, Bai Hai, and the others all emerged from seclusion soon after Jian Chen had left. They all stood in the city lord's estate as they cast their gazes into the distance. What's happened? Why has brother left so hurriedly? And why has he brought Xiao Jin with him? Bai Lian asked rather uneasily. She had a vague idea why. Bai Hai, Ming Dong, Du Gufeng, and the others became stern. Bai Hai solemnly said, "If I've guessed correctly, the people of the world of Forsaken Saints have come. The calamity is beginning. Since the calamity is here, what are we standing around for? Let's all go to Mercenary City to help. Come, let's immediately open a space gate to Mercenary City." Ming Dong cried out as he was brimming with interest to fight. However, he received a guard's report that the space gate could no longer be activated. "Since we can't activate the space gate, then I'll use my abilities as a Saint King to make one." Ming Dong smiled confidently and immediately began to rip open space. However, his smile soon froze because he discovered that he was unable to rip through the space there as an 8th heavenly layer Saint Kings, making space gates impossible to form. What is happening? Ming Dong's face twitched a few times unnaturally. Bai Hai looked at the golden barrier in the sky and emotionally sighed. Xiao Jin's barrier is becoming more and more complete. Looks like my dear grandson has taught Xiao Jin quite a few things over the past few days. Unless you possess strength greater than the person who set down the barrier, you're unable to rip open a space gate. Then I'll fly out of here. With my increase of strength, I can reach Mercenary City without wasting much time at all, Ming Dong pridefully said. He immediately took off, headed for the sky, but all he hit was the barrier. With a splat, he was stuck there with his legs and arms spread apart, before falling down in a horrendous manner. This barrier can actually stop us from leaving, and space gates don't work either. What is Jian Chen's intentions? He's actually locked us in here, Ming Dong said unhappily as he returned to Bai Hai's side in a messy fashion. I heard that the world of Forsaken Saints has many experts. Just the number of Saint Emperors they have outnumber the Saint Kings of our continent by several times over. It's extremely likely that the people taking part in the invasion this time are Saint Emperors. Jian Chen wants to protect us and not have us fall in battle, which is why he's gotten Xiao Jin to trap us here. He doesn't want us to take part, Yu Yu gently said. Her eyes were filled with worry. Our strength is still not enough. We need to continue our secluded cultivation, Du Gufeng nonchalantly added before returning to his secret room to continue his cultivation. There was a ditch 1,000 meters wide in the ruins of Mercenary City. The ditch was pitch black and seemingly bottomless. However, terrifying ripples of energy would surge into the sky and obliterate the clouds. The energy there caused the space there to violently distort. The experts gathered in the surroundings all stood afar with stern expressions. The Path Lord of Carnal Desires and the 3 Saint Emperors the Beast God Continent were all present. They all maintained their guard and were ready for battle. Oh no, there's coming over. They're all Saint Emperors. So many Saint Emperors. Xiao Ling's voice rang out from the empty air. She had materialized herself in that moment as well. Her young face was filled with fear as she stared at the depths of the ditch in unease. When the experts heard that they were all Saint Emperors, They revealed extremely ugly expressions, causing the atmosphere there to become extremely heavy. At this moment, a space gate ripped open several dozen kilometers away. Jian Chen emerged with a young boy, who was holding his hand, before quickly making his way over. His appearance caused lanky Rose and Kaiser to narrow their eyes. Their gazes became filled with fear, while even the Path Lord of Carnal Desire's gaze toward Jian Chen became filled with dread as well. However, their gazes were focused on the two swords on Jian Chen's back for the most part. They were not the only ones who paid attention to Jian Chen's swords. At that moment, everyone present had shifted their attention away from the ditch to Jian Chen's swords. Many of them had not personally witnessed the power of the swords, but they knew that Jian Chen had used just one of them to defeat the two Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent with a single attack. Big brother, you're finally here. The baddies from the world of Forsaken Saints are all coming. They have so many Saint Emperors, at least several hundred. What should we do? Xiao Ling arrived beside Jian Chen as she asked him while clinging to his hand. She was almost in tears. What? Several hundred Saint Emperors? Xiao Ling's words erupted in the minds of the Saint Kings like a bolt from the blue. They all paled. They had thought that only around a dozen or several dozen Saint Emperors were coming. They had never thought that there would be several hundred. Jian Chen gently rubbed Xiao Ling's head and said, "Don't be scared, Xiao Ling, aren't I here? I'll accompany you in battle and kill enemies together. All you need to do is use the abilities from your master to attack the enemies as soon as they appear, right?" Xiao Ling immediately calmed down quite a bit when she heard that Jian Chen would be fighting with her. She firmly nodded. Chapter 1380. Attack 3. Great-grandson, come here, an ancient and amicable voice rang out. Chongyang Zhu Shao smiled at Jian Chen. His gaze toward him was filled with approval and pride. Chongyang Zhu Yunxiao and Chongyang Zhu Yayan's gaze toward Jian Chen was filled with mixed emotions. The two of them had never thought that Jian Chen would be able to grow at such a shocking pace, where the Saint Emperors of both the Tian Yuan continent and the Beast God continent treated him with so much fear. Jian Chen held onto Xiao Jin's hand as he arrived beside Chongyang Zhu Shao. Xiao Ling followed behind him. He bowed as a junior and said, "I greet the great-grandfathers and grandmother." Both Chongyang Zhu Shao and Chongyang Zhu Yunxiao were far greater than Jian Chen in terms of seniority. Even with the Chongyang ancestor, over a dozen generations had passed since he had founded the Chongyang clan. As a result, they were all Jian Chen's great-grandmothers and grandfathers. Chongyang Zhu Shao, Chongyang Zhu Yunxiao, and Chongyang Zhu Yeyun all happily smiled. Even before a battle of life and death, they were still unable to hide the pride they felt inside. The Saint Kings in the surroundings all became green with envy when they saw Jian Chen bow to the three of them. After all, Jian Chen was a true Saint Emperor in their eyes now. This was an overwhelming matter for Saint Kings to receive a bow from a Saint Emperor. Many people immediately became riddled with jealousy when they discovered just how much the barrier spirit relied on Jian Chen. However, they did not know Xiao Jin's true identity. None of them were able to see through his strength, or no one would have known how they would end up reacting if they found out that two Origin Realm experts relied on Jian Chen so much. The veiled heavenly enchantress looked at Jian Chen from afar from within a group of people. Her enchanting eyes would shift to Xiao Jin from time to time. She secretly clenched her teeth as her gaze toward him became extremely mixed. Even her hand around the zither of the demonic cry tightened slightly. "Great-grandson, leave the child in the divine hall. There will be extremely many Saint Emperors attacking from the world of Forsaken Saints this time. We won't be able to look after him once we start fighting." Chongyang Zhu Shao looked at Xiao Jin before pulling out a divine hall in an attempt to protect him. He guessed that Xiao Jin might have been Jian Chen's child. He had no idea why Jian Chen would bring his child here, but with Jian Chen's special status, it would be inconvenient to ask. Jian Chen had no idea how to react with what Chongyang Zhu Shao attempted to do. Just when he wanted to say something, a violent boom suddenly rang out from the ditch, together with a violent spatial stream. After the spatial stream gushed out, tremendous presences radiated from the ditch. They quickly surged into the sky as a group of Saint Emperors from the world of Forsaken Saints charged into the sky. Their terrifying presences swept through the surroundings, causing space to collapse and the world to spin. Just their presences had forced countless Saint Kings back. "Activate the formations," called out the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. His voice was thunderous as it reverberated 10,000 kilometers away. Countless formations appeared, not just on the ground but in the air as well. These formations were all the strongest formations cast down by the greatest formation masters on the Tianyuan continent after pouring their hearts out. Within them hid the greatest trapping and killing formations from ancient clans as well. As soon as the formations appeared, the surroundings became a mix of formations. Layers upon layers of them appeared and flickered with different colors. The pulses of energy easily ripped through space as darkness descended everywhere. The Saint Emperors from the world of forsaken saints who had charged out first were trapped. These formations were all linked together, so their power stacked together. Even though they were cast down by Saint Kings, several linked formations were still enough to trap or even heavily injure a few Saint Emperors. There were 500 Saint Emperors in total who had come this time. Several dozen were trapped by the formations while a portion of the others immediately forcefully attacked when they saw that they had become trapped. They attacked the formations from outside to assist the people inside in breaking free. The other Saint Emperors charged into the surroundings as they engaged in a battle against the four races. Use the Emperor armaments. A great elder from a protector clan yelled and immediately pooled his power with others to control the Emperor armament to battle the foreign Saint Emperors. The other protector clans all controlled their ancestral weapons to attack the opponents after seeing the situation. They had originally placed their Emperor armaments there so that the great elder Tianjian could cast down an absolute killing formation at the entrance to the other world. But after he had left to refine the divine hall of Mercenary City, he had not emerged since. This was why they could only give up on the idea of the killing formation. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City sighed. He also led all the experts of Mercenary City into battle. The foreign world had invaded too quickly. They had not finished their preparations. The Great Elder was still refining the absolute divine hall while Houston, who had just become a Saint Emperor, was missing as well. The reinforcements from the Sea Realm had not gathered either. None of the 3 Saint Emperors of the Sea race were present. Other than the Chongyang clan and Tyrant's Blade School, the Protector clans all wielded their Emperor armaments against the Saint Emperors of the foreign world. As the Emperor armaments of the 2 other Protector clans had been taken away, the experts from the 2 clans could only use powerful secret techniques in battle. A huge shield hung in the sky on the side of the 100 races. It was several hundred meters across as it blocked an entire region like a wall. It endured the attacks from over a dozen Saint Emperors. This was the clan treasure of the dwarves from the ancient times, the Heaven's Guard. It had been created by the strongest dwarven king, who had poured his heart into it, making it extremely tough. Its glory had been exhibited in the War of the Ancient Times. However, the shield became dented in a short amount of time as it was rained on by the attacks of the foreign Saint Emperors. Cracks slowly spread across it. The dwarven king who controlled the shield vomited blood from behind. Not only was there blood, there were pieces of organs as well. The dwarven king was only a saint king at great perfection. The attacks that the Heaven's Guard withstood were just far too violent. Some of the force was redirected onto the dwarven king. Even after being drastically weakened, it still was enough to heavily injure him. He was unable to last much longer. It's a pity that I'm not a Saint Emperor. If I had the strength of a Saint Emperor, I would not be reduced to such a horrible shape from blocking the attacks of over a dozen Saint Emperors. The dwarven king sorrowfully sighed. He felt despair as he stared at the several hundred Saint Emperors from the foreign world. A huge tree grew among the 100 races. It shone with resplendent green light and was brimming with life. It was the Elven God Tree, also originating from ancient times. It had survived the test of time without falling apart. The Elven God Tree was several thousand meters tall and, combined with its thick trunk, seemed like a pillar that held up the sky. It shone with endless green light, enveloping the entire battlefield. All injured people would rapidly recover as they bathed in the green light. The hundreds and thousands of branches from the tree danced as a flurry in the sky. All the branches extended indefinitely, coiling around the nearest Saint Emperor. Countless branches stabbed into the Saint Emperor and endlessly began to drain away the Saint Emperor's life. Chapter 1381. A Battle of Two Worlds, 1. The Saint Emperor trapped by the Elven God Tree began a desperate struggle. Terrifying pulses of energy surged out of his body as he attempted to break free from the restrictions of the tree. However, the Elven God Tree was an ancient existence. Its toughness was incomparable to ordinary tree branches. All its branches coiled around the foreign Saint Emperor, wrapping him up like a cocoon. No matter how much the Saint Emperor struggled, he was unable to break free. The tremendous life force within him was drained away by the Elven God Tree. His presence rapidly weakened during the process and he struggled less and less. He was weakening. On the other hand, the elven god tree began to shine even brighter with its green light. Its huge expanse of vegetation rapidly consolidated. From a closer inspection, it was evident that the tree was not tangible but illusionary. Behind, the lycanthropes entered their battle mode. They became half human and half wolf. Their heads remained human while their bodies became wolf-like. They were covered with thick, dense fur and worked together to fend off a Saint Emperor. Though, they were still not the Saint Emperor's opponent. Soon, the lycanthrope Saint Kings all became heavily injured by the Saint Emperor and were dyed red with blood. The berserkers, flame demons, lamias were the same as the lycanthropes. They all attacked a single Saint Emperor with several Saint Kings or even a dozen Saint Kings. But the disparity between the two cultivation levels was extremely vast. They were still not their opponents even with their advantage in numbers. They all became covered in wounds while the Saint Emperors were barely injured at all. Toward the very back of the 100 races was a group of people completely covered by grey cloaks. There were not many of them, only a few hundred, and not all of them were Saint Kings. There were many Saint Rulers, Heaven Saint Masters, Earth Saint Masters, and even Great Saint Masters among them. They currently all sat on the ground. They formed an odd formation while their hands were forming seals, and they were also chanting. They were the shamans of the 100 races. They were not powerful, and there were less than 1,000 of them in total. They were known for their curses. Heavenly awakening. Suddenly, all the shamans called out together. Their voices were hoarse, but they were filled with an irresistible charm. Their voices actually drowned out the sounds of battle. An odd pulse radiated from all the shamans, before fusing together into a single ripple that shot toward a Saint Emperor. The ripple seemed to be able to pass through space and time, striking the Saint Emperor who was fighting against the berserkers in a single moment. The Saint Emperor suddenly froze and vomited blood as if he had been heavily injured. His body cracked like a vase and was dyed with blood in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the ferocious attacks from several berserkers struck the Saint Emperor, causing his body to fall apart and disintegrate on the spot. Only his soul remained, filling him with fear. However, before his soul could escape, it was cleaved into two by a berserker, killing him off completely. There were two figures hidden in the empty space among the battlefield of the 100 races. They did not give off any presences or any traces of existence, where even Saint Emperors struggled to discover them. Even when space violently shook, it was not enough to force them out. They both wore long, silver robes. They possessed an elegant stature and were able to move about secretively. They could always attack from behind and catch their opponents off guard, dealing a fatal blow. They were the shadows of the 100 races. They possessed a glorious past in the ancient times, but they had declined now. There were only 10 people in total who were a part of their race, and the two present here were the two strongest rulers. They were Saint Kings of the 5th and 7th heavenly layers. The ground violently shook as several giant, 100-meter-tall rockmen fought against the foreign Saint Emperors. Their bodies were extremely tough, but they were still unable to endure the attacks from the Saint Emperors. A large boulder would shatter when they were hit by an attack, or the attack would even pierce them. The rockmen were extraordinary. They did not possess flesh or blood, and their vitality was just overwhelming. Their bodies rearranged themselves time after time. Even though it seemed like they had been beaten to a horrendous shape, their battle prowess did not decrease at all. The sea race was the most miserable. Only a portion of the sea goddess hall had come, and they did not have a Saint Emperor leading them. They had to resist the attacks from the foreign Saint Emperors by themselves, so just after a few short moments, 5 Saint Kings had fallen. Only 2 of them managed to flee with their souls. The 3 Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent fought at the very front. They were extremely powerful and, coupled with their bodies as magical beasts, they were extraordinarily tough. There was rarely anyone from the world of Forsaken Saint who could take them on in a one-on-one situation. This did not mean that the Saint Emperors of the foreign world were weak, but that the 3 Saint Emperors had already reached a higher level in cultivation as Saint Emperors. They were already stronger than quite a few of the invaders, which was why they could keep them at bay. However, Kaiser, Lanky Rose, and Songcheong all bathed in blood right now. They were rather injured as they had to stop several Saint Emperors each. The battle was absolutely devastating. All the ground below had virtually been destroyed, forming countless, bottomless ditches. Gentle waves of heat radiated from below. They were already approaching the mantle of the land. The entire Tianyuan continent violently shook. The ground in the center of the battlefield was close to disappearing completely. The pitch-black cracks in space constantly spanned out and did not close even after a very long time. The 100 races, sea race, and magical beasts were faced with extremely great pressure. Many of their experts had fallen. Only the humans had it easier. Jian Chen and Xiao Ling lead the humans into the depths of the enemies. Xiao Jin had been sent to Chongyang Zhu Xiao and the other side, by Jian Chen, to ensure their safety. Xiao Ling's mind was not fully mature, but she struck out extremely decisively and without any hesitation or mercy. She was an Origin Realm expert, so the Saint Emperors were no different from ants in her eyes. With a wave of her hand, she shot a wave of white light toward the foreign Saint Emperors. The white light possessed unfathomable power, and as soon as the Saint Emperors came in contact with it, they would vomit blood and become heavily injured. A few weaker people even died after touching it. At that moment, the concept of ant-like Saint Emperors was truly displayed through the use of Xiao Ling's hands. Jian Chen fought as hard as he could as well. He charged into the groups of enemies while wielding the Ziying sword, using all the power he had to fight. He used his chaotic force to supplement his way of the sword, pushing his battle prowess to the limits. In just a short moment, he managed to kill over a dozen Saint Emperors while even more were injured by him. The Qing Sua sword did not sit on his back idly either. He controlled it with his soul. He had split his attention, using the Ziying sword to kill his opponents while the Qing Sua sword swept the skies. There were many humans behind them who used Saint-tier battle skills. They drew in the pressure of the world as several of them would attack a single foreign Saint Emperor together. The heavenly enchantress sat high in the air near the back of the human side. She placed the zither of the demonic cry on her knees as she played it with all her focus. Each note seemed soft, but they were as loud as great big bells. They drowned out all the sounds of fighting, allowing everyone to clearly hear them. The sound of the zither targeted specific opponents. Whenever the foreign Saint Emperors heard the sound, they would immediately feel their souls quiver. They would alternate between muddle-headedness and drowsiness from time to time. Illusions would also be conjured before them. A huge zither seemed to have condensed behind the heavenly enchantress. The 36 strings were clearly visible, and they were gently trembling. They resonated with the sounds fr the zither of the demonic cry. Chapter 1382. A Battle of Two Worlds, 2. Suddenly, surging battle intent flared up in the eyes of several Saint Emperors as they struck their companions beside them in the swiftest fashion possible. Spurt. Being caught off guard, their companions became heavily injured from the unexpected attacks and shot backwards while vomiting blood. Similar scenes happened across the entire battlefield. More than 30 Saint Emperors suddenly turned on their companions with their weapons. None of them had thought that their companions would turn on them, so they all became heavily injured due to being caught off guard. An unlucky Saint Emperor had even been encircled by several of his companions. Lasting only for a few seconds, his body was obliterated, forcing him to flee with his soul. However, the bell-like sound of a zither rang out right as the Saint Emperor's soul had made it away from the battlefield. It was thunderous to the soul's ears. The powerful sound wave caused the space there to fluctuate, reducing the Saint Emperor's soul to just a few fragments. The invaders began to panic due to that. In just a short moment, a few Saint Emperors had died to their companions' hands. They had all been attacked by several other people, dying bitterly. They've been affected by the zither and controlled by it. Find the person playing it and kill them. A Saint Emperor thunderously cried out from the side of the invaders. His cry was so loud that the surroundings shook. He was an extremely powerful Saint Emperor, almost having reached the peak of Saint Emperor. His shout immediately caused a few people, who had almost been swept away by the zither sounds, to sober up. At this moment, a powerful sword chi flew over from behind him. A terrifying killing intent immediately engulfed him, forcing him to shiver despite being such a powerful Saint Emperor. Without any thoughts, he immediately dodged to one side. A sword engulfed by a layer of violet light passed through where he was standing before. The glow of the sword came in contact with his clothes and silently reduced them to dust. A sliver of surprise immediately flashed through Jian Chen's eyes when he saw that the Saint Emperor had actually avoided his attack. However, he did not show any hesitation at all. With twist of the wrist, the Ziying sword stabbed out as a violet stream of light with a certain white glow. This was the sword chi Jian Chen could use after comprehending the way of the sword. This sword chi was a condensation of laws. It had surpassed the boundaries of ordinary sword chi and had combined with the azulate swords, allowing it to become even more powerful. The Saint Emperor showed no fear. With a deep grunt, the energy within him surged out like a tsunami, forming a barrier around him. He swung the huge blade in his hand toward Jian Chen. The blade shot out a gray beam of light. It was filled with a deathly presence, trapping Jian Chen in a cage. Jian Chen immediately felt that he was being suppressed by a mysterious power as endless amounts of gray light infiltrated his body, rapidly gnawing away at his life force. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as the chaotic force within him surged. He quickly wiped out the deathly presence within him. Ignoring the hazy prison he was in, he stabbed out with the Ziying sword in an unstoppable manner. Ding! With a metallic clash, the Ziying sword surged out of the gray prison and struck the huge blade of the Saint Emperor. The blade had been cleaved in half while the remaining part attached to the hilt quivered. It resonated as if it was crying. The Saint Emperor stared at his broken blade in a daze as shock filled his face. The blade had been with him for several millennia. He had participated in countless battles where the blade had grown with him. Even if he faced against experts at the same level as him, his weapon would not even suffer a scratch. Yet, it was unable to stop Jian Chen's attack, having been cleaved into two like fragile tofu. Why, you're an Origin Realm expert? The Saint Emperor was shocked. Probably only Origin Realm experts could do something like this, but he did not sense the pressure of an Origin Realm expert from Jian Chen at all. Jian Chen remained emotionless with cold eyes. After cleaving through the blade, the Ziying sword did not slow down at all, piercing the Saint Emperor's chest in the end. The powerful sword chi hidden within immediately erupted. Not only did it instantly devastate his organs, a pure strand of sword chi surged up into his head and wiped out his soul. An azure sword quickly weaved about near Jian Chen as it attacked several dozen Saint Emperors. It was the Qing Suo sword controlled by Jian Chen's soul. The sword was not in Jian Chen's hands, so the power it could display was nowhere near as great as the Ziying sword. However, it was still a sword with a spirit. The sword chi that erupted from it could not be resisted by any way, slaying several Saint Emperors in just a short moment and heavily injuring several dozen more. Many Saint Emperors had already begun to work together as they tried to deal with the Qing Suo sword. Xiao Jin played a part as well. He also possessed strength of the Origin Realm, but he did not commit massacres like Jian Chen and Xiao Ling. He only waved his hand and trapped several Saint Emperors with a golden barrier before standing there in a daze. He stared at the panicking Saint Emperors in interest. He would often only help out and repel the opponents when Chongyang Zhu Xiao and the others were in danger. Xiao Jin rarely delivered attacks, but whenever he did, they would be shocking. He obliterated a Saint Emperor's body and soul with a single punch. The force and power of his punch had alerted all the human Saint Kings around him. Most of the Saint Emperors from the world of Forsaken Saints were kept busy by Jian Chen and Xiao Ling. Only a small portion of them were able to attack the four races. The number of enemies that had fallen to Jian Chen and Xiao Ling's hands had reached 100 now, but several hundred people of the four races had died as well. There were countless more who had been heavily injured. During this time, the elven god tree continued to shine bright. The power it had displayed was shocking to the elves themselves. Although its accomplishments in battle were incomparable to Jian Chen or Xiao Ling, it had already killed almost 10 foreign Saint Emperors. Without any exceptions, all of them had been wrapped up by the tree's branches before having their life sucked away. All that would be left was a bag of bones. The tree's green light, which was filled with the presence of life, became even more blinding after absorbing the lives of the Saint Emperors. Its tremendous life force enveloped the entire battlefield and assisted the injured people. The behavior of the elven god tree piqued the interest of the elves very much, despite their good understanding of it. The tree had existed for an extremely long time, having survived through the ages between now and the ancient times without withering at all. It had always remained very healthy. Except the abilities it displayed now were vastly different from the records contained in the ancient times. This was because the main trunk of the tree was unable to leave the territory of the elves. They had not brought the main trunk this time, only a branch of the tree. Chapter 1383. Tai Ta becomes a Saint Emperor. A divine hall stood like an ice sculpture on the Arctic tundra in the north. The divine hall was snow-white throughout and seemed to have fused with the surroundings. It gave off a magnificent sense of prestige. Protector Xueqi currently stood at the very top of the divine hall in her silver-white armor without moving at all. Her face was covered by a helmet, only revealing a pair of icy cold eyes that were currently fixated in the direction of the Tianyuan continent. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce space and observe everything happening in Mercenary City despite the tremendous distance. Jian Chen's already achieved some accomplishments now. I never thought that he would comprehend the way of the sword so soon. There's no Saint Emperor now that is his opponent. Only Origin Realm experts can keep him at bay. However, that person in the world of Forsaken Saints is even more powerful. He's comprehended the way of the sword as well, and his comprehension is even greater than Jian Chen. Jian Chen may be growing faster than him, but he will soon come to the Tianyuan continent. With his strength, which is equivalent to godhood, Jian Chen will not be his opponent. He will be doomed. Her Majesty still really cares about her brother, but Jian Chen is the successor of the sword sect of Violet Heavens. The two of them will end up on opposing sides sooner or later. I have agreed with Mo Tianyun to not interfere with Her Majesty and Jian Chen's matters, but it's got nothing to do with me if Jian Chen ends up slain by that person from the world of Forsaken Saints. However, Jian Chen's growth is extremely impressive. If he does not die, he will be able to catch up to him quickly, and with his connection to Her Majesty, Jian Chen might be of help once we return to the Saints' world. Protector Xueqi mumbled to herself as the light in her eyes flickered uneasily. Within the artifact space, Tai Ta and newbies continued to cultivate like before. Jian Chen had basically stored all the heavenly resources he had obtained from the Shenhuang microcosm in there, so the two of them could utilize them as they wished. Not only had newbies ingested a large quantity of divine water of the world to change his constitution, he did not miss any heavenly resource Jian Chen had left in the artifact space. He had consumed a few, allowing his strength to constantly increase. He had even made a kettle of comprehension tea using the best spring water available, and consumed a 5th-grade violet cloud peach, elevating his strength to the great perfection of Saint King. He had yet to fully absorb the vast energy in the immortal peach, so he was currently inching towards Saint Emperor. Tai Ta's strength had undergone a great increase as well. He currently let out a golden light as he sat there like a giant. He channeled the essence of the world, which shone with various colors. The presence he gave off was as great as a mountain, enough to even make Saint Kings feel like they were suffocating. Tai Ta walked a different path of cultivation that could not be measured using the standards of the Tianyuan continent. It was a system of its own, where he would undergo a metamorphosis each time he reached a corresponding realm and receive an inheritance from the world. Suddenly, a heavy, dull sound rang out from Tai Ta's body. Immediately, an extremely powerful energy erupted, causing the surrounding space to violently tremble and almost collapse. The hall that Tai Ta had chosen to cultivate in turned to dust from the waves of energy. The entire space was affected. The world there trembled gently as huge, deep cracks spread out with Tai Ta at the epicenter. The energy that had erupted from Tai Ta did not disperse and instead spread out as a pulse, causing mountains to collapse, the ground to crack, and space to become unstable wherever it passed by. The energy was just about to reach the two halls where newbies and the white tiger stayed. At this moment, the artifact spirit silently appeared. With a wave of his hand, he moved the halls around before immediately channeling the power of the artifact space to stop the expansion of the energy. In the end, the artifact spirit managed to stop the ripples after a lot of work, preventing them from traveling any further. However, another heavy, dull sound rang from Tai Ta's body like a drum. With the sound, another storm of great energy exploded out of Tai Ta, quickly spreading out with him as the center. This time, the artifact spirit was prepared. It immediately used the power of the artifact to stop the ripples in their tracks. A third and fourth sound rang from Tai Ta's body close after the second. The outcome was exactly the same each time. With every sound, a powerful wave of energy would form. Tai Ta's strength had arrived at a bottleneck and he was currently making a breakthrough into a higher realm. However, since his cultivation method was extremely extraordinary and originated from the world, the breakthrough caused a very great disturbance that was much different than an ordinary person's breakthrough. As the powerful energy surged out of Tai Ta in a seemingly unceasing manner, the artifact spirit finally became stern as well. If this continued, the Saint artifact would not be able to withstand it. This was because Tai Ta's strength had already reached the level of Saint Emperor's, which was enough to destroy the space of the artifact. Without any hesitation, the artifact spirit swung its hands and condensed all the power within the space around Tai Ta. In the end, it formed a huge barrier of energy around him. This was a barrier completely condensed from radiant saint force. It was extremely powerful, and Taita seemed to have been wrapped up in a huge cocoon from afar. Bang! Bang! The barrier cast down by the artifact spirit began to violently tremble as it resisted powerful surge of energy. Thin cracks began to cover the barrier. It then shattered loudly when the ninth sound came from Taita. Immediately, a terrifyingly powerful presence radiated from Taita, enough to cause the surroundings to tremble from his presence alone. His presence caused the entire artifact space to shake violently while the surrounding space twisted, as if it was about to collapse from the pressure. The entire artifact space faced the danger of shattering. The artifact spirit panicked. Taita's presence was far more powerful than any regular Saint Emperor. He had only just broken through, but the artifact spirit felt like he was facing a peak Saint Emperor. Taita had become a Saint Emperor, but his strength after breaking through could not be measured according to the standards of the Tianyuan continent. His strength was far greater than a regular Saint Emperor. The world gave birth to warring gods, who could be traced throughout history. They were blessed by the world and were known to be the strongest in the world. Every time they broke through, they would undergo a qualitative leap in strength, leaving others in the dust. Stop! This space is going to collapse soon. The artifact spirit called out in a panic. He was clearly flustered right now. Taita was just too powerful. Even without sending out an attack, just his presence alone was enough to destroy the space. This was because the presence possessed an extremely powerful battle intent, which possessed very destructive properties. Taita seemed to hear the artifact spirit's pleading calls and slowly dispersed his presence, allowing the artifact space to gradually calm down. Friend, I can already sense the intense battles outside. There are many Saint Emperors. The people of the foreign world should be here. Let me out. I want to fight along Jian Chen's side. Taita stood up and spoke to the artifact spirit with his deep, gentle voice. His eyes burned with battle intent. The artifact spirit was shocked. The artifact space was a closed world that resided in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness, but Taita was still able to sense the battle outside, which was unbelievable. Chapter 1384. Taita enters the battle outside. Jian Chen rampaged among the army of Saint Emperors from the foreign world with one of his swords. No one could stop him. Even though there were quite a few peak Saint Emperors, they were unable to last longer than 3 attacks against Jian Chen. The Ziying sword was just too powerful. Whether it was the weapons in their hands or the armor on them, they all became as fragile as tofu before the Ziying sword. Jian Chen and Xiao Ling had already slaughtered to the point where the Saint Emperors shivered inside. The Saint Emperors all viewed them as demons as they fled, so Jian Chen and Xiao Ling had to charge off in certain directions. All the Saint Emperors that the two of them approached would flee in any direction they could out of fear. The battle was extremely intense, with people passing away at all times. The sky had become filled with bloody rain while the ground beneath had sunken, revealing bottomless chasms that emitted waves of heat from the magma below. Not only had Mercenary City been completely destroyed, even the area within 100,000 kilometers had been ruined. All the mountains and rivers nearby had become history, but the affected area was even vaster. The entire continent shook violently. The 3 Hall Masters of the Sea Realm finally arrived at the battle with various Saint Kings behind them. The Sea Realm was stronger than the Tianyuan continent and the Beast God continent as a whole, and they had basically sent everyone. The number of Saint Kings from them outnumbered the Saint Kings on the Tianyuan continent by 2 or 3. They became engaged in battles against Saint Emperors as soon as they arrived. The Hall Masters of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven Spirit Hall had not made full recoveries, so they dragged their injured bodies into battle. The presence Yadrium gave off was as vast as the ocean, striking fear in the hearts of a few foreign Saint Emperors. This was because she had reached the peak of Saint Emperor, and had arrived at the border of the Origin Realm. Another Saint Emperor had appeared among the experts of the Sea Realm beside them. She was the strongest Hall Elder of the Sea Realm, Yadrium, having successfully become a Saint Emperor with the heavenly resources Jian Chen had left behind. However, the arrival of the 4 Saint Emperors was still not enough to change the situation at hand. Other than a few humans protected by Jian Chen, Xiao Ling, and Xiao Jin, the other people were suffering heavy casualties. More than half of the humans had passed away already. The invaders suffered heavy casualties as well, having lost over 200 Saint Emperors. Most of them fell to Jian Chen and Xiao Ling's hands. At this moment, Jian Chen narrowed his eyes. He had received a message from the artifact spirit, and with a thought, the saint artifact shot out from his forehead. As soon as it arrived outside, a storm of powerful energy blew over and barraged the Saint artifact. With a flash of golden light, Tai Ta suddenly appeared, having emerged from the artifact space. The Saint artifact did not linger for a moment longer after releasing Tai Ta. It immediately returned to Jian Chen's sea of consciousness. The battle outside was just far too intense. There was a huge group of Saint Emperors, so just the pulses of energy were enough to rip through space and damage the Saint artifact. Tai Ta, kill to your heart's content. Drive back the invaders of our home. Jian Chen coldly shouted to Tai Ta before continuing toward a region dense with Saint Emperors. Tai Ta nodded firmly. His blood burned with the battles around him, almost causing it to boil. Blinding golden light exploded from Tai Ta, enveloping him. The golden light illuminated the surroundings, outshining the resplendent green light from the elven god tree. He seemed to have become the only existence in the world. At the same time, supreme battle intent flooded the surroundings. The battle intent was like an attack on the soul. All the people who sensed the battle intent could not help but fear Tai Ta. Their courage to battle plummeted. Mysteries of war, mortality breaker. Tai Ta bellowed as his voice surged into the sky and echoed in the surroundings. He raised his high axe high up. It shone with dazzling golden light, fusing with his battle intent. It created a 100-meter-long projection as it fell ahead. The space cracked as the axe fell, creating a huge chasm. It loomed over 4 Saint Emperors within an unstoppable might. The projection of the axe smoothly passed through the 4 Saint Emperors, and the 4 of them suddenly froze before being cleaved in half. Their souls were unable to escape, dying on the spot as well. Back in the Sea Realm, Tai Ta was able to fight with the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall without having broken through. Now that he had stepped into a new realm, his strength had drastically increased. Killing Saint Emperors was a piece of cake to him now. The War God. It's the War God. The War God has appeared. Good God. I've finally seen the War God. Fantastic, fantastic. The War God of our 100 races has returned. Our race will experience glory once more. Oh my God. What did I just see? The War God has actually slain 4 Saint Emperors with a single stroke. Am I dreaming? God bless our race. Not only has our War God appeared once more, his strength has grown to such a powerful level. God bless us. The 100 races fell into a commotion with Tai Ta's appearance. They all emotionally cried out in joy. Some of the older people had even teared up and became filled with inextricable joy. Not only was the War God the God that the 100 races believed in, but he was also their religion. He was their soul. Tai Ta slaughtered all the Saint Emperors around him as he made his way toward the 100 races. When he had absorbed a droplet of Ergin's blood, he had received a fragment of his memories as well. He knew that the 100 races were his people since he was the War God. In this current age, the 100 races did not possess any astounding experts. They suffered extremely heavy casualties and several of their forbidden artifacts had been shattered as well, including the Heaven's Guard of the dwarves. The situation was rather pessimistic for them. He wanted to go over and help them, to become their shield and sword to stop the enemy. At this moment, the clear resonance of a sword rang out from the depths of the tunnel. The sound was not loud, but it was sharp, enough to drown out all the other sounds of the battlefield. Even the heavenly enchantress music was suppressed. The heavenly enchantress stopped playing as she placed her slender fingers on the strings of the zither. She sternly stared into the depths of the tunnel. Jian Chen was taken aback as well. He pulled back his sword and hovered in the rippling space as he stared into the depths of the tunnel. He finally became stern as some obvious shock surfaced. His soul had actually shuddered from the resonance of the sword. At that moment, he understood many things. He learned that an extremely terrifying opponent was about to arrive, and also knew that this opponent had comprehended the way of the sword. This opponent's progress was even greater than his. Minor achievement of sword origin, almost major achievement. Master, this person is very powerful. Be careful. The sword spirits very sternly informed Jian Chen. Jian Chen shivered inside. He knew that among the 5 major realms of the sword, each realm was divided into the initial basics, minor achievement, major achievement, and great perfection. He had only attained the initial basics of sword origin while his opponent had already reached minor achievement and was about to attain major achievement. He would be an extremely powerful opponent. Chapter 1385. Battle in the tunnel. At the same time, Xiao Ling stopped her slaughter and arrived before Jian Chen in a flash. She fearfully stared into the depths of the tunnel as she nervously clung to Jian Chen's arm. She said with fear, "Oh no, big brother, that big baddie is coming over as well." Xiao Ling had faced the Spirit King back when the seal had still been intact. His power had greatly shocked Xiao Ling's tender soul, leaving behind a permanent shadow in her heart. It was something that she could not overcome, and now that she was about to face the owner of the shadow, Xiao Ling experienced indescribably terror. "Xiao Ling, don't be afraid. I'm here," Jian Chen comforted, but he felt no confidence inside. He had never seen the powerful opponent before, but it caused him to feel a great pressure. Even Jian Chen was not confident he would end up victorious. Xiao Ling gave out a gentle interjection of agreement and firmly nodded. However, her grasp on Jian Chen's arm tightened. Clearly she was extremely nervous inside. The Saint Emperors from the foreign world heard the thrum of the sword from the depths of the tunnel as well, and immediately became excited. They understood the power of the Spirit King extremely well. He was definitely the most powerful Spirit King their world had ever seen. The legend regarding the current Spirit King had already spread through the world of Forsaken Saints long ago. He had become a tale in the current world because he was able to slay a mid-reciprocity Spirit King within 10 attacks despite having just reached reciprocity. He had forged his own glorious legend. After that, the two other former Spirit Kings fought with him for 4 whole hours as mid and late reciprocity experts. In the end, both of them were slain by the current Spirit King, creating a story that he was invincible, which then spread throughout the entire world. He had carved his name into history. Even though the Spirit King had only sent his sword over this time and the Tianyuan continent only had 2 or 3 Origin Realm experts, the foreign Saint Emperors still believed that they were no match for the Spirit King's sword. After all, the Spirit King's sword was dyed with the blood of 3 reciprocity experts. Xiao Jin stared at the depths of the tunnel as well. He pouted as he curiously observed it. "Xiao Jin, stay behind and project them. You must keep them safe," Jian Chen said to Xiao Jin through a communication technique. He worried about Chongyang Zhu Xiao and the others, so he had always left Xiao Jin by their sides. However, he only got Xiao Jin to protect them, along with Hao Wu, the heavenly enchantress, a few elders of Mercenary City, and the few experts he was friends with. Afterward, Jian Chen glanced in Tai Ta's direction before pulling Xiao Ling with him into the tunnel. Streams of energy shot out from the tunnel beneath the ground from time to time and into the sky. The energy was so powerful that it was enough to kill Saint Kings instantaneously. Even Saint Emperors could end up heavily injured if they were not careful. Jian Chen and Xiao Ling headed toward the other side of the tunnel. As soon as streams of energy rushed over, they would be stopped by Xiao Ling with a wave of her hand without requiring Jian Chen to do anything at all. The energy streams were lethal to Saint Kings, but they were no threat to Xiao Ling. The tunnel was very unstable. The space in there kept warping, distorting the surroundings. It seemed like chaos, making it impossible to see the other side. However, a black metal sword could vaguely be seen slowly floating through the tunnel. The power of the sword was just far too great. Even though its glow was hidden, suppressed in an attempt to appear ordinary, the space would shatter fragment by fragment wherever it passed. The space would be reduced to nothingness, alternating between chaos and darkness. Jian Chen stood before the tunnel with the Zi-Ing sword. He glared at the barely visible sword in the tunnel before suddenly erupting with sword qi. The sword qi was so powerful that it could temporarily suppress the chaotic streams of energy in the tunnel. Afterward, the sword qi rushed into the air above in a visible form, lingering there like a sword. Jian Chen seemed to have become a divine sword. He glowed with blinding a white light as endless sword qi radiated out into the surroundings. He had pushed his comprehension of the way of the sword to the limits. With a wave of the Zi-Ing sword, he immediately shot a huge, 30-meter-long sword qi into the tunnel. It flickered with a violet light, which was both dazzling and resplendent, shooting toward the metal sword in the tunnel. The tunnel in space violently trembled as soon as the Zi-Ing sword entered it. The already unstable space was about to shatter. Jian Chen could tell with a single glance that it was very difficult for the space to endure the energy from Saint Emperors. The black swords might clearly surpass the limits of the tunnel, so even though it did all it could to suppress its power, it still endured great hardships as it advanced through the tunnel. As soon as the tunnel collapsed, the outcome would be unthinkable. What he needed to do was force the black sword back before it arrived on the Tianyuan continent or destroy the tunnel. The black sword had discovered the danger ahead. With a slight tremor, it produced a deep thrum. The sound struck Jian Chen's sword qi as a sound wave. Although it was unable to stop the sword qi, it was enough to slightly weaken it. The metal sword then shone with a dim, dark glow before suddenly increasing its speed, shooting forward like a loose arrow. Boom! The metal sword continued to suppress its presence. It collided with the violet sword qi, using the toughness of the blade to fend off the sword qi. Because the tunnel was very unstable, Jian Chen's sword qi caused the tunnel to reach the brink of shattering. The black, metal sword was unable to erupt with power since its power would only hasten the collapse. The terrifying pulses of energy from the collision of the sword and sword qi caused the tunnel to tremble even more violently. Part of the surroundings had already collapsed, and the tunnel seemed like it was about to fall apart. The metal sword paused slightly before continuing on. It left the most unstable region before shining with a faint, dark glow. It moved faster and faster as if it wanted to leave the tunnel as soon as possible. Jian Chen's eyes shone with a resplendent light. He released his grip on the Ziying sword and began to control it with his soul. The Ziying sword immediately shot into the tunnel as a violet stream of light, engaging in a battle with the metal sword. There was no one directly controlling the metal sword, but it possessed a fragment of the Spirit King's soul. It was able to use all the accumulated experience and battle techniques of the Spirit King, while engaging in an intense battle against the Ziying sword within the tunnel. The ringing sounds of collisions constantly rang out as terrifying energy wreaked havoc upon the tunnel. In just a short moment, the walls of the tunnel cracked before partially collapsing. The damage was even more severe than before. Chapter 1386. More Origin Realm experts. The black, metal sword was something extraordinary, equivalent to the Ziying sword. Not only did it avoid falling into a disadvantage against the Ziying sword, but it also fought freely. However, after the tunnel became riddled with server cracks, the metal sword no longer bothered to deal with the Ziying sword. It rapidly approached the exit of the tunnel as it fended off the Ziying sword's attacks. Jian Chen recalled the Ziying sword after seeing how it was unable to do anything to the black sword. He used a sword technique he had learned from the sword spirits and shot out 3 powerful sword qi, condensing a trapping formation to stop the black sword. Afterward, he constantly swung his sword, sending out strands of powerful sword qi toward the cracked and collapsing tunnel, causing the cracks to widen. He wanted to destroy the tunnel. At the same time, Xiao Ling struck out as well. She copied Jian Chen and attacked the tunnel with as many powerful attacks as she could. As long as the tunnel was destroyed, they could temporarily stop the invasion of the foreign world. The tunnel began to collapse on a large scale after enduring the attacks from the two of them. The space in the tunnel distorted as thick cracks constantly appeared. It had become severely shattered. However, the tunnel was far tougher than Jian Chen had imagined it to be. It had cracked and shattered, yet it remained intact due to a mysterious force. They were unable to completely destroy it. At the same time, the black, metal sword finally displayed its might. An extremely powerful energy erupted from within the sword, immediately tearing Jian Chen's formation to shreds. It shot toward the exit of the tunnel in a flash of black light while the space within a dozen meters from it was reduced to darkness. The darkness would linger for quite some time. The tunnel cracked even more from the extreme power of the black sword. A segment of it had even fallen apart, but an energy continued to hold the two sides together. The black sword understood that the tunnel would not collapse, so it ignored the damage and erupted with its greatest power, charging forward as quickly as it could. In a single moment, the sword traversed the last portion of its journey and arrived at the entrance. It then stabbed at Jian Chen without slowing down at all. Jian Chen became stern as he immediately placed the Ziying sword in front of him. Ding! The sharp tip of the metal sword clashed with the Ziying sword with an extremely great force, producing an abnormal metallic ring. Powerful pulses of energy erupted from underground, causing magma to be thrown into the air in huge waves. The tip of the metal sword remained stuck to the Ziying sword. It burst forth with all its might, charging out of the tunnel with Jian Chen. It transformed into a black speck in the blink of an eye and disappeared into the sky. Big brother! Xiao Ling produced a cry of surprise as she tailed them. She disappeared into the sky as well. The battle beneath continued. Although Jian Chen was now gone, there was Tai Ta, so the Tian Yuan continent had not weakened at all. However, the rate of casualties among the 4 races had not decreased. 2/3 of the Saint Kings had already passed away. Although Tai Ta had slain many, There was still over 100 foreign saint emperors. Kaiser, Lankiros, and the Path Lord of Carnal Desires had fled the battlefield due to the heavy injuries that they had sustained. Songcheong was the only remaining saint emperor of the magical beasts, dealing with the foreign saint emperors by utilizing his ability to move the fastest in the world. However, he dared not to face them openly. The sea race had suffered extreme casualties as well. Less than half of the people they had brought were left. The Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall was currently engaged in a battle against several saint emperors with a trident. She was covered in blood, both hers and her opponents. She was extremely heavily injured. Atlantis was no longer present on the battlefield. She had suffered very severe injuries and had almost passed away. She had been saved by Yadrium in a final moment and had been sent into a divine hall that she carried along her side. At this moment, 2 streams of light shot through the sky from afar. They entered the battlefield with great force, piercing the heads of 2 saint emperors and wiping out their souls as soon as they arrived. It's our clan's emperor armament. The ancestor is our reinforcement. The great elders of the Tyrant's Blade School and Chongyang clan were reinvigorated, because the 2 streams of light were the wave-breaking blade of the Tyrant's Blade School and the righteous Yang sword of the Chongyang clan. The 2 weapons had killed their way into the battlefield and gave off a presence that caused the saint emperors to shiver inside. The 2 weapons were not as powerful as the azulate sword or the black metal sword, but they could easily deal with saint emperors. The foreign saint emperors were not the weapon's opponents at all when only one of them was fighting at a time. They would end up slain within 10 attacks. Even the combined attacks of several saint emperors were only enough to reach a stalemate against the 2 weapons. God damn it, these are weapons of Origin Realm experts. I never thought that there would be more Origin Realm experts here. That's impossible. There is no origin energy here and the energy of the world is so thin. It's impossible for so many Origin Realm experts to appear. Just the existence of 1 or 2 of them is a miracle. No, there's something wrong with the 2 weapons. They seem to have been heavily damaged in the past, falling from the grade of saint artifacts. The saint emperors of the foreign world all cried out, but soon a person discovered the flaws of the weapons and pointed them out. This was because the world of Forsaken Saints had always been in possession of Origin Realm experts. So many saint emperors from the foreign world had an extremely deep understanding of that realm of cultivation. The knowledge they possessed was incomparable to the people of the Tian Yuan continent. After all, the world only had 4 Origin Realm champions in the past. Even a million years ago, records of Origin Realm experts were rare existences. The temperature in outer space was extremely low. So cold, in fact, that even Earth Saint Masters would not be able to survive. A huge, white planet loomed to one side while the vast cosmos dominated the other. There was no gravity theorem nor any sense of direction. It was impossible to distinguish which way was left, right, up, or down, and the energy of the world was absent as well. Even saint emperors would not be able to replenish the saint force they consumed in outer space. Jian Chen currently wielded the Ziying sword as he hovered in a ball of blinding white light. His presence was as vast as the sea while his battle intent roared within him. He stood there like a drawn sword. Xiao Ling stood near Jian Chen. She nervously stared at an area right in front of her. Some fear was present on her face, but it was also filled with an awareness and was full of vigilance, as if she was about to face a powerful opponent. The black, metal sword hovered silently right before them. It churned with light, which pierced into the surrounding space and caused it to warp. A dense, dark light was emitted from the sword, rapidly condensing into a human-sized figure. The light created a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. He stood tall and straight, and the presence he emitted was like a mountain, calm and steady. He stood there with his arms crossed, as if he had fused with the surroundings. He gave off the feeling that the world was beneath him. Chapter 1387, Battle in Outer Space, 1. The middle-aged man looked at Jian Chen and Xiao Ling. He had appeared with a neutral face and profound eyes, but the moment he saw Jian Chen, a sliver of surprise flashed through the depths of his eyes. He had never thought that there would be another Origin Realm expert other than Xiao Ling, let alone imagine that this expert would have entered the way of the sword. Even in the world of Forsaken Saints, there were countless people who used the sword and plenty who had reached the Origin Realm, but without any exception, none of them had entered the way of the sword. Not to mention, the person who had comprehended the way of the sword originated from a world where there was no origin energy, and where there were barely any Origin Realm experts. Afterward, the middle-aged man looked at the huge planet beneath him. He became fixated in the direction of the Tianyuan continent and immediately frowned. He said with a low voice, "I've underestimated the strength on your side. Who are you?" Jian Chen growled. He could tell that the person before him had not actually come and was only a projection of his soul and power, but the pressure this person let out was still vast. If he had actually personally come, just how terrifying of an opponent would he be? "You can refer to me as the Spirit King," the man replied indifferently. Jian Chen shuddered inside. He said, "Spirit King, you really are the ruler of the foreign world. However, this place does not belong to your world. It's not a place that you should set foot upon. I must come here." "No one can stop me," the Spirit King replied very leisurely, but he still possessed a determined will. Jian Chen's eyes grew colder. Even though his opponent's strength was rather frightening, there was no need for him to fear it since he had not come personally. Jian Chen said coldly, "We can only fight it out if that's the case." Jian Chen tightly grasped the Ziying sword and condensed shocking a sword qi around him, enveloping himself in a blinding white light. The region of space around him violently shook, while the Ziying sword erupted with a glow it had never shown before. It produced terrifying pulses of energy before seemingly fusing with Jian Chen. Together, they stabbed at the Spirit King in a flash of violet light. Jian Chen did not hold back. This attack contained all his power. He had pushed his fourth-layer chaotic force and his comprehension of the way of the sword to the limits. The chaotic force's power had been amplified several times through the Ziying sword and the sword qi, causing his attack to surpass the level of Saint Emperors and reach the origin realm. The violet light tore through the sky and caused the space around it to shatter, carving out a chasm several hundred meters long and over 10 meters wide. Jian Chen's attack was just too powerful. It was powerful enough to carve away a section of the continent if it was used on the Tianyuan continent. The Spirit King remained where he was without moving. He was calm and composed, brimming with confidence. His tall stature seemed extremely large, enough to shoulder an entire world by himself. He grasped the Cloud Stream sword in his right hand. It flickered with a dark light as an extremely powerful energy remained hidden within. Afterward, he used the most basic attack, a simple thrust, to receive the Ziying sword. This was the most ordinary attack one could perform with a sword, but it possessed an extraordinary force in the hands of the Spirit King. The simple thrust seemed to contain an ultimate ability. It was not as simple as it seemed. It contained a world and universe within. Boom! The tips of the two swords collided violently and immediately produced a deafening boom. Powerful ripples of energy swept into the surroundings as storms, causing the space to shudder and the stars to darken. The Ziying sword came to a halt and revealed Jian Chen. He was bathed in the light from the sword, as if he had fused with it. The two swords did not separate and remained locked in a stalemate in space. Vast energy leaked out from the two swords as they attempted to surpass each other. With the clashing of energy, the space around them began to collapse. A black hole started to appear where the two tips touched, rapidly expanding in size. The ripples of energy emitted vanished into the hole as well. Jian Chen and the Spirit King remained locked like this. The Spirit King had reached the origin realm, but he was not truly present this time. He had only deposited some power within the Cloud Stream sword, so he was unable to unleash all his power. At this moment, Xiao Ling moved as well. She suppressed her fear and silently arrived behind the Spirit King. She raised her little fist and viciously threw it toward him. As soon as the punch was thrown, the surrounding space collapsed. Her punch was just too powerful, even overshadowing Jian Chen's attack. The Spirit King did not become flustered at all. Within a moment, a powerful strand of sword qi condensed in his left hand. It shone with a dazzling white light, which illuminated the surroundings. This was sword qi. He had condensed using his understanding of the way of the sword. It was not just energy, but a condensation of laws as well. It was even more powerful than Jian Chen's sword qi. Without even looking back, the Spirit King swung the sword qi toward his back, forcing Xiao Ling to pull back her punch and stop the attack. Bang! The sword qi vanished with a dull sound. Xiao Ling managed to block the attack, but she was blown several kilometers away. So powerful! Xiao Ling commented. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She had already reached returnance and the Spirit King was not personally present, yet just a clone condensed from energy was enough to force her back. Breakthrough! The Spirit King exhaled gently, and with a jolt of his arm, A powerful force immediately erupted from his sword. It broke the balance it had maintained with the Ziying sword and suppressed Jian Chen in a single moment, blowing him far away. Jian Chen became extremely stern. The power of the Spirit King had greatly exceeded what he had anticipated. He had never thought that a single clone would be so powerful. Jian Chen regained his footing far away and formed seals with his hands. He quickly formed several complicated seals before crying out, "Sky-severing strike." At that moment, the Ziying sword became 100 meters long. Its violet sword chi erupted as it cleaved toward the Spirit King. This was one of the sword techniques Jian Chen had learned from the sword spirits. Although it was a part of the basics in the eyes of the sword spirits, Jian Chen was able to erupt with power he did not possess when he used it. It was akin to saint rulers using saint-tier battle skills to heavily injure saint kings. However, the sword technique was far more powerful than saint-tier battle skills. The Spirit King narrowed his eyes. The attack had locked onto his presence, preventing him from dodging. He could only take it on forcefully, but as the Ziying sword approached him, he felt like he was trapped by a mysterious power, as if his body was as heavy as a mountain. "This is a sword domain," the Spirit King murmured. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, but he did not show any fear at all. Instead, his battle intent surged and he yelled out, "Break domain!" The Cloud Stream sword did not erupted with much force. With just a dull flash, it was thrust into space, immediately dispersing the mysterious force around him. "Break sword!" The Spirit King called out this time and the Cloud Stream sword charged toward the huge Ziying sword. A wondrous energy circulated within the Cloud Stream sword as it came in contact with the Ziying sword. Ding! With a crisp sound, the power of Jian Chen's sky-severing strike vanished like a deflating balloon. It rapidly weakened before the Ziying sword returned to its original form and returned to Jian Chen's hand. Chapter 1388. Battle in Outer Space. 2. Jian Chen was shocked inside. The sword technique he had just used originated from the Azulite sword spirits. Even though it was only one of the basics, it still originated from the immortals' world. The power of the technique was unimaginably great, yet it had fallen apart so easily before the Spirit King. He found it difficult to believe. It would have been acceptable if the Spirit King was actually present and had easily broken through the sword technique then. But all that was present was a strand of soul and some energy the Spirit King had deposited into his sword. The Spirit King's comprehension of the way of the sword is greater than mine. Can he easily stop my sword techniques with just his advantage in the way of the sword? Jian Chen thought about it quickly, but his hands never stopped. He swung the Ziying sword and used a second sword technique, sending 3 sword chi toward the Spirit King with a flash. The 3 sword chi did not attack the Spirit King directly. They instead shot into his surroundings and created a formation, trapping him in a triangle. Each strand of sword chi was 2 meters long and let out a blinding light. The 3 strands of sword chi resonated with one another as they fused their power to seal off the region. Jian Chen's presence skyrocketed. He arrived above the Spirit King in a flash, and at the same time, the Qing Suo sword arrived beneath the Spirit King in a flash of azure light through the control of his mind. Afterward, both swords stabbed toward the Spirit King from above and below. 2 streams of light, one violet and one azure, shot through space with unbelievable speed. If the Spirit King wasn't in between them, it seemed like the 2 swords were about to collide. Break. Formation. The Spirit King's face remained the same as before. He gave a deep grunt before the Cloud Stream sword stabbed into empty space, immediately striking Jian Chen's formation with a mysterious power. With a boom, the 3 sword chi were easily smashed. Afterward, the Spirit King shot up as he moved toward Jian Chen with a terrifying presence. The Qing Suo sword erupted with azure light from beneath the Spirit King. It transformed into an azure streak as it shot up, attempting a pincer attack on the Spirit King with the Ziying sword. It vaguely radiated with supreme Yin Qi while the Ziying sword above vaguely radiated with supreme Yang Qi as well. This was the Yin and Yang Qi created from chaotic force when the world began. This was the power of the sword spirits. Although the sword spirits sustained great injuries and their Yin Qi and Yang Qi had become extremely weak, they were still able to erupt with unbelievable force if their supreme Yin and Yang Qi came together. As soon as the Spirit King came in contact with the Ziying sword, he sensed the sliver of supreme Yang Qi hidden within. His heart immediately tightened, and without any hesitation, he came to a halt before reappearing 1,000 meters away in just a single movement. As soon as the Spirit King vanished, The resplendent light of the two swords overlapped with one another. However, the two swords remained separate, coming no closer than 3 inches, while the supreme yin and yang qi erupted with a destructive ripple of energy. 9 godly arts. Slayer. Xiao Ling became stern in the distance. She used the supreme techniques that Mo Tianyun had left behind, the 9 godly arts. Her hands turned into claws as terrifying energy condensed around them. She then swept them in front of her. The region of space around her trembled before collapsing. An extremely powerful force of slaughter shot toward the Spirit King as a crescent and caused space to collapse along the way. The killing intent unleashed was enough to annihilate worlds, enough to affect the souls of people. Just the terrifying killing intent from the force of slaughter was enough to disperse the souls of weaker people. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He had seen countless saint-tier battle skills, but the 9 godly arts completely surpassed the realm of a battle skill. He had already determined that the 9 godly arts were not weaker than the sword techniques he had learned from the azulate sword spirits from the might this one attack displayed. It could even be more powerful. Saint-tier battle skills were only suitable for saint rulers and saint emperors. The effects would not be very evident when used by saint emperors, yet the 9 godly arts were still able to demonstrate such a great impact when cast by a returnance expert. This could only be explained by the fact that the 9 godly arts were of an extremely high grade. The Spirit King's indifferent eyes brimmed with interest. He became fixated on the force of slaughter that was wreaking havoc. He actually felt like he could not dodge the attack, as if it would catch up to him if he tried to move. The Spirit King raised his cloud stream sword and endless white light condensed from the surrounding space. The sword became a streak of white light before surging out as an afterimage. He struck the force of slaughter with the sword. Boom! The force of slaughter was dispersed by his sword, but the Spirit King was blown far away. His figure had become somewhat blurry. The Spirit King tossed out his sword as he shot back. The cloud stream sword shot towards Xiao Ling while flickering with a dark light. The sword was like a venomous snake hidden within the darkness of space. With a thought, Jian Chen controlled his 2 swords with his soul and directed them toward the cloud stream sword. His swords managed to stop it while he used the illusory flash to shoot toward the Spirit King. He condensed a sword from Sword Qi in his right hand and stabbed it toward the Spirit King. 9 godly arts. World lock. Just when the Spirit King wanted to deal with his opponent in a similar fashion, Xiao Ling used the 9 godly arts again. She froze the entire region in a single moment, catching the Spirit King off guard and immobilizing him. The power of the 9 godly arts was incomparable to the basic sword techniques Jian Chen knew. They were even more powerful since they were being used by Xiao Ling, a returnance expert. Unless the Spirit King was personally present, his clone would not be able to break free in a single moment. Jian Chen's sword qi punctured the Spirit King's body, but no blood appeared. His body became more ethereal since his figure, which was condensed from a strand of soul and some energy, rapidly weakened. The Spirit King remained composed despite being hit by such a heavy attack. He maintained the same expression as his surroundings became flooded with an endless white light. The light transformed into countless swords that attacked the surroundings, allowing him to break free from Xiao Ling's technique. He extended his right index finger and shot a sword qi into Jian Chen's chest. Unlike the Spirit King, Jian Chen's body was composed of flesh. He grunted as he shot back in a flash. The sword qi from the Spirit King wreaked havoc within him. It was like a snake, turning both his blood and organs to mush wherever it went. The sword qi in Jian Chen was a condensation of laws even more powerful than the sword qi he could use himself. He dared not to deal with it carelessly. He immediately directed his chaotic force to surround the sword qi before using his comprehension of the way of the sword to destroy it. At the same time, the Spirit King experienced what Jian Chen was going through as well. Jian Chen had also managed to deposit a strand of sword qi in the Spirit King's clone, but the Spirit King possessed a greater understanding of the way of the sword, so he dispersed it very quickly. Big brother! Xiao Ling immediately began to panic when she saw that Jian Chen was injured. Her face was filled with worry. However, she knew how to help Jian Chen. She needed to defeat the Spirit King, so she immediately dismissed her thoughts and formed a seal with her hands. She used the 9 godly arts again. 9 godly arts. Descent of the Divine Beast. A huge white tiger condensed behind Xiao Ling. It stood there majestically, almost like a divine god had descended. It produced a roar before leaping forward. It seemed to pass through the fabric of space, ignoring the distance between the two of them and arriving before the Spirit King as if it had teleported. It swung one of its paws at the Spirit King with terrifying force. The attack contained the force of slaughter as well. It was filled with killing intent. The Spirit King became rather stern for the first time. His presence skyrocketed as he recalled the Cloud Stream sword. He pushed his minor achievement understanding of sword origin to the maximum as he swung the Cloud Stream sword toward the white tiger with a blinding light. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.